Welcome in to another edition of the Giant Overreaction. I am your host, Authentic. Like to welcome everybody to the realest, rawest New York Giants content on the internet. And where does one start after that tough loss yesterday at home to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? Dexter Lawrence said the New York Giants played soft. Malik Neighbors said the Giants played soft. Jermaine Illuminor said, I personally don't think everyone is giving 100% of their effort. Yes, this team is quitting, but I think a lot of it has to do with the organization quitting on the players by benching Daniel Jones, cutting Daniel Jones, and even telling the fan base that Tommy DeVito was going to provide a spark for this team. We went out there and you saw pretty much the exact same results. And it made me think about a Mike Lombardi quote from just over a year ago where Mike Lombardi said, you cannot con the players and you cannot con the locker room. And I think a lot of the players on this roster are now understanding what is happening within the New York Giants organization, which is they're either tanking or they're either getting ready to fire their head coach in Brian Daboll. I have heard a little bit of rumblings about this. Did not get any news today about Brian Daboll being fired. It was kind of to my surprise. I expected to get up today and, hear the news that Brian Daboll had been fired after this poor performance against the Bucs here at home. The Bucs did improve to 5-6. The New York Giants fall all the way down to 2-9, sitting at the bottom of the division. Things are looking better if you are one of the fans like myself that is looking forward to getting a new quarterback on this team come time during the 2025 NFL draft. But the Bucs end up winning this one 30-7. Both teams were coming off the bye, very well rested. Both teams coming off of losses before the bye. The Giants have not started 2-9 since Daniel Jones' rookie season. That year, they did start off 2-11. And right now, currently, the New York Giants are on a 6-game losing streak where they have not held a lead at any point in any particular time of any one of those 6 games. They're 0-6 at home right now, one of only 2 teams in the NFL that has not won a game at home, the Dallas Cowboys being the other one. And this was just another lackluster, pathetic performance by the New York Giants. And this time it wasn't just on the offensive side of the ball. This was on all 3 phases of this team. Just pretty much a lack of effort. You could see guys out there quitting, including guys that we consider to be front runners and leaders of this team like Bobby Okereke. You even saw the body language and the demeanor of Malik Neighbors not only during the game, but definitely after the game. We're going to get off into that when we talk about some of these overreactions. But this was a Bucs team that I didn't think that this was necessarily a game where the New York Giants should come out and win, but I definitely thought that this was a game with the way that the Bucs had been playing as of recent that the Giants could have went out here and at least competed. And I don't think who was playing quarterback would have mattered. The Bucs came into MetLife on a 4-game losing streak, and in those 4 games, the Bucs defense had allowed over 30 points in 3 of the 4 games. Over the last 2 games, the Bucs had allowed 31.3 points per game and 425.3 yards per game over those last 2. The Giants scored 7 points. And we saw it when we watched the Philadelphia Eagles play last night that Saquon Barkley had more yards than the entire New York Giants offense did in their game on Sunday. Things are not going to get better. We got 6 more games left on the schedule here, and I could imagine this team is going to get worse throughout those 6 games because this is just the first of the 7 that we were supposed to see with Tommy DeVito at quarterback. There was a moment there where he did get hurt in the game, and we saw Drew Lock come in for just 1 play, had 1 pass he completed. And that was that. But it's not going to surprise me if Drew Lock comes out here and gets some snaps at the quarterback position for the New York Giants because either one of these quarterbacks really don't yield a result that is going to give the New York Giants victories. And I think you got to see what you got in Drew Lock. I think that's why they went to Tommy DeVito as well, just to see what they got. But Tommy DeVito ended up getting this first start here. And Drew Lock, being a professional, you saw him during the week speaking at his locker, talking about how this was, pretty much some devastating news, but he couldn't really come out and say what the real factors were. Same thing goes for Brian Daboll. He's been saying pretty much for 2 weeks now, I understand the question, but not answering the questions. But Tommy DeVito did end up getting a start in this game, and it really was not good. Just from the onset of this game, I do want to pull up Tommy DeVito's stats on the day. I mean, he finished the day 21 of 31. Doesn't look too terrible. This looks a lot like a Daniel Jones game, if you ask me. So, new quarterback, very similar results. Malik Neighbors did come out and say that it's not on the quarterback right now. You see that the results are the same with Daniel Jones and Tommy DeVito at the quarterback position. But for me, I think that, coming from a rookie like Malik Neighbors, I think he doesn't understand what it could be like playing with one of the high-level, top-tier type of quarterbacks in the league. So he's looking at Tommy DeVito and looking at Daniel Jones and putting them in the same category, which I think is correct. But I do think that the quarterback could matter. Malik Neighbors did complain about not getting the ball. This was Tommy DeVito's 7th start in the NFL. He came in 3-3 as the starter. He was undefeated at MetLife with a 2-0 record. DeVito was sacked on his first drop back of the game. And we talked about this on the preview show. Since week 4, the Bucs had more sacks than any other team in the NFL. That was 26 coming into this game. They got to Tommy DeVito 4 times in this game, and they had at least 2 sacks in 7 straight games. Tommy DeVito was sacked 3 times in the first half. And we talked about this as well. In 2023, Tommy DeVito was, of the 3 quarterbacks that we had on the roster, between him, Daniel Jones, and Tyrod Taylor, Tommy DeVito was sacked more than any of the 3 quarterbacks. Tyrod Taylor is the guy who took the majority of the dropbacks that season. Now, Tommy DeVito was sacked 4 more times in every one of the games that he started in. He was sacked 37 of his 237 dropbacks. That's about 6.4 attempts before being sacked. His pressure to sack percentage was 37.4%. And Tommy DeVito on the day, his QBR was 14.8. And if you looked at Tommy DeVito's QBR coming into this game, it was not much better than what we saw in this performance here, around 14.8. I think it was just under 25. No catches from Jalen Hyatt in this game. Rarely saw him on the field even. No catches from Darius Slayton in this one. No catches from Malik Neighbors in the first half. Tommy DeVito was just completely blitzed by the Bucs in this game on about half of his attempts. 15 of his 31 dropbacks, he was blitzed. And he fared pretty decent against the blitz in this game. He was 11 of 15 for 113 yards when blitzed. He was pressured 17 times in this game. That's 54% of his dropbacks. The pressure to sack ratio was 23% for Tommy DeVito. Tommy DeVito had 5 yards at the end of the first quarter. So this is a performance that I'm sure he wants to put behind him. And being that he's a relatively young quarterback in this league with just a few starts under his belt, he's trying to put some games out there on tape so that when he is not a New York Giant, which is what it's looking like to me, that some team will look at him as a viable option coming in as a practice squad guy or possibly as a backup. Now, you guys know this, and I'm in a lot of debates on Twitter that I'm almost just waving the white flag at this point, because if these people didn't recognize the red flags when Joe Shane first came in and some of the red flags with Daniel Jones at the quarterback position, I'm starting to feel like this is delusion as the definition of delusion, because I've been tweeting this out and talking about this on this channel for a long time, that when it came time to pay Daniel Jones after the 2022 season, there were other options out there that when it came from a productivity to a value type of standpoint, it didn't make sense for me to go out there and give Daniel Jones $40 million when you had quarterbacks like Marcus Mariota, a guy that I was definitely banging the table for, that could come in and run this particular Brian Daboll offense that is being ran with Daniel Jones and could service as the bridge quarterback until we figured out either drafting the next guy or who was going to be the next franchise quarterback for the New York Giants. And you could have did that for a fraction of the price. So during the game, when Baker Mayfield's lighting us up, I obviously take to Twitter and I say, we could have had Baker Mayfield for $4 million a year. Instead, we decided to pay Daniel Jones $40 million. And people were saying, hindsight is 20/20. And I think that these are just the same people that are covering up for the same excuses that they had during the time of Daniel Jones being the starting quarterback for the New York Giants for 6 seasons. And that was not enough for them to understand that this guy was never going to be able to be the quarterback that was going to get it done in New York. And now we're looking at a guy in Baker Mayfield coming to MetLife Stadium and straight up torching the New York Giants. I know the box score might not say that. He was 24 of 30, so you got to think about it. Only 6 passes hit the ground on the entire day. 294 yards. He didn't have a passing touchdown or a mistake with any interceptions on the day. He did have 1 rushing touchdown, which was hilarious when he got in the end zone to celebrate. But nonetheless, Baker Mayfield came out here and you saw a guy that was extremely decisive. To me, in this game, it reminded me that Baker Mayfield, when it comes to dropbacks, mechanics, footwork, he's one of the best in the NFL. I mean, this guy is tight with the dropback, very decisive, gets rid of that ball quickly. He knows, you can tell that Baker Mayfield has an understanding for the Bucs offense, and this is a guy that has played for 3 teams over the past 5 seasons. Baker needed just 1 passing touchdown in this game to reach 25 passing touchdowns on the year, which would have been his 4th time as a professional throwing for over 25 touchdowns. So he's just 1 away from that. He's been having a really stellar year this season. He has 28 touchdowns in 13 road starts since last season, which is the most by any quarterback on the road since that time. So we're talking over the last 2 seasons. And getting Mike Evans back after that hamstring injury absolutely helped. But it's not like they had to rely on that in this game. They got out to such an early start in this one in the first half. They coasted to a victory in the second half. Mike Evans had 5 receptions for 68 yards on the day. The Bucs had lost every game with Mike Evans not in the lineup. And like I said, they came in on a 4-game losing streak with Mike Evans, I believe, missing out on 3 games. So it's pivotal, and you can tell when Mike Evans gets back in the lineup what it does for Baker Mayfield. He doesn't need a galore of weapons. He doesn't need Chris Godwin out there as well or an extremely effective running game. He just needs a competent group of players around him, surrounding him to be able to go out there and really make the plays necessary to win these games. But you see, when you look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you're looking at an organization that handled the quarterback room the proper way. They had Kyle Trask on the roster, and I thought that he was actually going to get in the game, considering the way that the Bucs were just completely blowing the socks off the New York Giants. But they opted to go with Baker Mayfield throughout this game. But they brought in Baker Mayfield on a cheap contract after he proved that he could still get things done on a Monday night game with the Los Angeles Rams after leaving the Carolina Panthers. He goes in there. They give him the luxury to be able to compete for the starting job. And what do you know? He wins the starting job, ultimately ends up, buying himself into a contract with the Bucs a year later. And Baker Mayfield is now one of the top 15 quarterbacks in the league. Absolutely. There is no denying that, right? And in this game, you saw it. He straight up just carved up this New York Giants defense. And the defense was terrible. There's no doubt about it. Like I said in the opener, this was a game where, this wasn't your typical Daniel Jones type of game where the defense goes out there, they're playing extremely well, they're giving the offense multiple opportunities, and the offense is just sputtering throughout the game and unable to be able to sustain drives. This was a game where the defense didn't look good from the onset. I mean, Baker Mayfield went down on the first drive, drove his team down to get a touchdown, and meanwhile, the New York Giants defense is sitting there twiddling their thumbs. And I think that there's a mistake that is being made here. With the New York Giants fan base engaging the type of defense we have, engaging the type of pass rush that we have. We cannot judge the New York Giants defense strictly and solely on their highs. We have to also consider the lows. The Giants had 4 total pressures on the quarterback in this game. 6 passes hit the ground and 4 total pressures. The guy that I've been talking about that I think was a mistake for Joe Schoen to bring in at $28 million a year, paying this guy upwards of $150 million over a 5-year contract, is Brian Burns, who literally did not have a pressure on the day and had a pass rush win rate of 7%. This guy is a clone of what Kayvon Thibodeau is, and Kayvon Thibodeau was back in this game. His best play was a dirty shot on Baker Mayfield where Baker Mayfield was throwing from his own end zone and ended up driving his team down the field to score a touchdown, and it was their final touchdown of the day to put them up 30-7 or 30-0, whatever it was. And Kayvon Thibodeau's pass rush win rate was just 13.6, which is not that bad. But when you got 2 speed edge rushers, what I've been saying all year long, these guys are built exactly the same. You throw in Azeez Ojulari in the mix there, who's relatively built similar. Guys that are not great against the run. You saw it in this game, the Bucs attacking both of these edge rushers, running the ball right at them with outside zone, and the New York Giants having absolutely no answer. The front 4, outside of Burns, outside of Thibodeau, every other player from that front 4 had a 0% win rate on the day. That's not going to get it done. And when you have a poor, struggling type of offense that the New York Giants have, we cannot afford for our defense to go out here, 1, not cause any turnovers, not get the takeaways. The New York Giants have not had an interception in 10 weeks. It's a franchise record. And honestly, I don't even know where we're going to get an interception from this season, because you're not even seeing these guys getting close. You're not even seeing plays where you go, oh, man, we almost had a pick right there. You're not even seeing that. And here we are. We got Xavier McKinney with the Green Bay Packers. We have to watch him week in and week out go out there and have at least 1 interception, and he had another one this past weekend. And that's a guy that Joe Schoen let walk over just $17 million, where we paid a quarterback in Drew Lock to come here to be the backup at $5 million a year. And when it came time for Drew Lock to do his job and be the backup, they decided to opt and go into a different direction and start Tommy Devito. These are all coaching mistakes. These are all front office mistakes that we have to be able to point the finger at Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll. And quite frankly, I'm extremely surprised that today nobody has been fired yet. I'm surprised. I just don't understand it. Now, as far as the game goes, let's briefly just go into the game, talk about a couple of the issues that the New York Giants had against the Bucs here at MetLife real quick.
Giants are on the board with 11:16 to go here in the third.
All right, now the Bucs go down the field on their first drive, 14 plays, 70 yards, opening touchdown to take the lead to go up 7-0. And then I thought things just started to unravel. We know that the New York Giants are not a team that is really great at playing from behind there. I will say that their offense does tend to get clicking when they are down on the scoreboard, almost out of desperation. But we are not a team that is built to be playing down on the scoreboard. And the following possession, when the New York Giants got their second possession, Daboll ends up being very aggressive from his own 37-yard line on fourth down. And, this year I feel like Brian Daboll has been a little bit overly aggressive and has not had to pay for it. There are a lot of times where the New York Giants are going for it on 4th and 3, 4th and 1, 4th and short. And they've been able to have success on fourth down when Brian Daboll decides to be aggressive. But in this one, I thought this was just a boneheaded play call to start the game off to put your team into a major hole early in the game. You're on your own 37-yard line. The first quarter is about to end. And this play reminded me a lot of what we used to see out of Jason Garrett. Wan'Dale Robinson has 2 rushing attempts on the entire season. And on 4th and 1, with really, to me, the game on the line. Because once you go down 2 scores, 10-0, 14-0, this game is going to be over. The New York Giants offense is not a high-powered, high-potent type of offense. It reminded me of Jason Garrett, that you would run a jet sweep on 4th and 1 to Wan'Dale Robinson when at that time in the game, Tyrone Tracy was averaging 7 yards per carry in that first quarter. And I've been one of the people that has been willing to give Brian Daboll the benefit of the doubt because in my heart of hearts, I feel like Brian Daboll is really a good coach in a bad situation. That's not to say that 1,000% I think that Brian Daboll is the man for the head coaching job with the New York Giants. I do think that he's better suited as an offensive coordinator because when it comes time to make these type of decisions, I feel like Brian Daboll has had a bunch of issues during his time with the New York Giants and sometimes has just been able to get a bit lucky, especially on fourth down. But these kind of decisions are what put your team in a hole. And these are the type of situations that are going to make players get frustrated. You heard Malik Neighbors, and if you haven't, we're going to play those clips for you guys during this show. But he is extremely frustrated, and we're talking about a guy that has just played 11 games as a professional. And he's coming out being vocal about it and expressing his frustrations not only with what's going on during the results of the game, but what is going on with the game plan and the type of approach that our head coach is bringing to the table for this offense. As much as he could, he pointed the finger at Brian Daboll. And then the Tampa Bay Buccaneers end up going up 10-0 in the end of first quarter. And right before that, on third down, just Baker Mayfield and the exchange, they end up fumbling the ball. Sean Tucker fumbles the ball, and the Giants are just standing around looking oblivious. Like, I didn't hear a whistle on the broadcast, so I don't know why these guys aren't playing to the end of the whistle, but I think that speaks towards the opening about guys not playing with that certain type of effort. And I'm one of the people that I don't think an NFL player can go out there and not play his best ball. I do think that leads to injuries. I think in most cases, in most scenarios, you're not going to see players go out there and give lackluster effort. But we have seen that countless times this year with the New York Giants. We saw it with Deonte Banks early in the season where the New York Giants and Shane Bowen, defensive coordinator, had to bench him for a little while there. And we've seen it. We saw it with Jermaine Illuminor. We saw it with Bobby Okereke in this game. We're seeing it across the board. And to me, this is looking like a head coach and a general manager that have lost their locker room. And I think a lot of it does have to do with the Daniel Jones situation with not only benching him and cutting him, but I just think that the locker room knows that the front office fucked up with the quarterback situation. They know that. And they know that Daniel Jones gives them the best opportunity to win games. So why pull that from out underneath of them? Why do that? The season is already gone. And if you are indeed going to step up to the podium and tell the fan base and the respective players in that locker room that you think that Tommy DeVito is going to provide a spark, then he better be doing that. Brian Daboll said that the Giants had a good week of practice. And when you saw the way that they played in this game, it was very apparent that good week of practice was not out there on the field against the Bucs. Now, this was the funniest moment to me. Now, Bucky Irvin did score another touchdown. The Bucs went up 17-0. That was a 7-play, 82-yard drive. But on the following drive, Baker Mayfield led them down the field. He scores on a rushing touchdown, dives in the end zone. I mean, it reminded me of the Jameis Winston touchdown that happened on Thursday night. And he took a big shot, even lost the ball, but he had already crossed the plane. He gets up and he does the Tommy DeVito celebration like this to the crowd. I saw him in front of the media, in front of the Bucs media, answering questions and people trying to almost make it seem like Baker Mayfield did something that should be offensive. And I think he played it perfectly. He said, no, I was just showing props to a guy. I think that guy, Tommy DeVito, has a lot of swag. I like that guy. I thought it was the perfect answer, and it was the perfect troll type of answer, but it was one of the funniest moments in this game. And at the half, when they were breaking it down, it was Boomer Esiason and Nate Burleson. Boomer Esiason asked Nate Burleson, is that paying homage? And Nate said, nah, that's disrespect. And that is facts. It is disrespect. And I think Baker Mayfield was conscious enough to understand that, one, he probably did already plan that celebration. They asked him about it, and he said, nah, we just, we did it, just spontaneously. And they said, but the players were celebrating with you. And he was like, I don't know, just played oblivious. And I love the way that he played that, because this is an organization that has had some back and forth with Baker Mayfield throughout the years, one of them being when Baker Mayfield had the comments on Daniel Jones in the GQ magazine, where Baker Mayfield pretty much just said, like, some of these teams just overlook it. Like, just win football. You got to go out there and draft a quarterback that's going to win games. He didn't understand the drafting of Daniel Jones. A lot of fans didn't. At the time, I gave the New York Giants the benefit of the doubt when they drafted him. I tried to do as much due diligence and research on Daniel Jones that I possibly could. And I thought that when I saw him and I saw his tape from Duke, I thought that there was a possibility that Daniel Jones could be a viable starter in the NFL. But after seeing Daniel Jones throughout the years, year one, you have so much hope in 2019. Then they fire the coach. In 2020, they bring in Judge and Garrett, and you're like, you still have hope. But you realize that there's not a lot of weapons around Daniel Jones. There's not a lot of functioning pieces on the offensive line around Daniel Jones. So we have another excuse after 2020. In 2021, they go out there and they address some of those issues. They bring in some weapons. They bring in Kenny Galladay. They bring in Kadarius Toney. They bring in John Ross. They bring in Kyle Rudolph. And still, Daniel Jones goes out there and puts up, I don't know what it was, 10, maybe 12 passing touchdowns on the year and ends up getting hurt again. And at that point, I think fans needed to start to look at this with a clear optic and be like, this don't look like the guy that is elevating the players around him. Now we get to 2022, and people felt that Daniel Jones was elevating some of the wide receiver core around him, guys like Isaiah Hodgins, guys like Richie James, guys like David Sills, and some of the other role players that the New York Giants had on the roster that year. But yet and still, he only threw for 15 passing touchdowns. I have seen quarterbacks go out there and elevate the players that are around them, that they aren't on the greatest of rosters, but we don't leave the season after 15 passing touchdowns and go, man, that guy had a great year. Let's go and pay him $40 million a year. I think that by that point, when it came time to pay Daniel Jones, if you weren't scratching your head at why the hell they're paying him $40 million, I think you need to look into maybe, more situations where and why quarterbacks are and aren't getting paid. I made a comparison in a debate with a bunch of people that are content creators in the New York Giants community about why Marcus Mariota serves the same purpose as Daniel Jones. They're both the exact same quarterback, except one of them is going to cost you about $7 million and the other one's going to cost you $40 million. Why would we do that? You look at Marcus Mariota and his tenure when he was at Tennessee Titans. He started off his first two to 3 years without weapons over there. He had guys like Rashard Matthews and Delaney Walker and a bunch of no-name wide receivers over there without a guy to go over 1,000 yards, and he led that team to a winning record. They then decided that they would put a weapon around him, and it still didn't work out. And when it didn't work out, they didn't give this guy the fifth-year option. They didn't give this guy $40 million. They didn't extend him and give him another contract. They said, see you later, buddy. Because there's a big difference. It's funny because there's a thin line between elite quarterbacks and average quarterbacks, but there's a big difference in those guys. And we as fans, we leave it up to the general manager, the front office, and the head coaches, the scouting departments, to be able to figure this stuff out better than we can as fans. And the New York Giants, in all of those phases, have failed. You look at this game at the half. The Giants had 3 first downs at the half. I don't know if that got any better throughout the game. It might have been just like 4 or 5 first downs. And I think that the Buccaneers had somewhere between 15 and 22 or something like that. 45 total yards for the New York Giants at the half. 0 for 4 on third down. Devito was sacked 3 times in that first half. 2.5 yards per play and just 35 rushing yards. Shutout in the first half for the second straight week. And we're talking about one against the Buccaneers who, okay, that's understandable. But being shut out in the first half against the Carolina Panthers, who are arguably the worst team in all of football before we played them, I think now it is an absolute fact that the New York Giants are the worst by far, especially now that you don't even have a guy in Daniel Jones at the quarterback position, and that's not saying much, right? But he was the best quarterback on this roster. So now you're dealing with Drew Lock, Tommy DeVito, and Tim Boyle at the quarterback position. There is not a roster in the league that is worse than the New York Giants. There is not a team that is assembled in the league worse than the New York Giants. And we're talking about teams like the Cleveland Browns, the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Carolina Panthers, the Las Vegas Raiders. All these teams are terrible, but they don't even touch how bad the New York Giants are right now. And we got 6 more weeks of this. I don't know how we're going to deal with this. We're talking about a team that went out here in the first half and had 3 punts and 1 turnover on downs. It was pathetic. They did not finally get into the red zone until the second half, and when they finally got down there after Tommy DeVito connected on 3 passes to Malik Neighbors, Tyrone Tracy goes out there and fumbles the ball from the Wildcat position with Tommy DeVito at wide receiver. Like, come on, somebody got to tell me what we're doing here as the offensive coordinator and as the head coach for the New York Giants. And y'all know, like I said, I've held Brian Daboll to a high regard, but when you see him going out here, it's one of 2 things. Brian Daboll is either trying to tank or he's just not a good NFL head coach. That's just what it is. And, speaking on the defense and the Kayvon Thibodeau, the play from Kayvon Thibodeau and the dirty shot that he took on Baker Mayfield, which happened, I believe, late in the third quarter or early in the fourth quarter. Baker Mayfield's in his own end zone. He gets rid of the ball. I'm just baffled how there was not a penalty on this play, because Baker Mayfield throws the ball on second down. The ball is gone for about 2.5 seconds, like literally. And Kayvon Thibodeau just takes a dirty shot on him right in his back. Referees don't call the penalty. Baker gets up like, what the fuck is going on here? They're looking at a 3rd and 8 there. He's like, all right. And this is what I love about Baker. This is what we talk about when we're talking about that it factor, that gamer factor, that, when you guys try to give me a tough punch me in the mouth, I'm going to come back and punch you right in the mouth. From his own end zone, backed up in his own end zone, 3rd and 8, went out there, bought some time, converted on 3rd and 8. He ended up converting on 2 more 3rd and longs on that drive, a 3rd and 11 and a 3rd and 9. Got some plays done with his legs as well. And then the drive ended with the Rachaad White touchdown. The Bucs went up 30-0 at that point. And then the New York Giants end up getting a garbage time touchdown. And I understand Tyrone Tracy fumbled the ball, but listen, I don't want to see Devin Singletary in the game anymore. You should have traded that guy at the deadline. He gets a garbage time touchdown here. I think it's his 3rd or his 4th of the season. What a bad signing by Joe Schoen to think that a guy like Devin Singletary was going to come out here and be able to supplement some of the work along with Malik Neighbors for what Saquon Barkley brought to this offense. And I'm sure y'all watched the Eagles on primetime. The Eagles have been a team that has been featured on primetime a couple of times this year. And man, does that make us and the whole New York Giants community look like just straight up bozos when you got to watch Saquon Barkley go out there and rush for 150 yards damn near every game and putting up like 200 yards of total offense. And yet and still, you will go on social media and see people still saying like, but he wouldn't have done that here. No, Saquon Barkley was here and we were losing games. We don't want losers, on our team. And the same thing goes for guys like Dexter Lawrence, right? The objective should be to stack good players, but somehow, some way, the front office of the New York Giants have convinced the fan base that that's not the smart thing to do. The smart thing to do is not only do you not trade these guys at the deadline, but you keep them on the roster till the end of the year when their contracts expire, and then you allow them to walk in free agency as all pros when we're talking about McKinney and Saquon Barkley, and then they go out there and we got to watch them go on other teams and be extremely productive, not just semi-productive, but be extremely productive. In some cases, be the most productive player on those rosters. This front office, this organization, these owners have this fan base looking extremely foolish right now. And we got to sit up here and watch Tommy DeVito go out here. And literally at the beginning of the game, you're seeing the whole fan base all hyped up in the crowd going like this. As soon as the Giants get down 17-0, now they're booing. Now they're booing. Make this shit up. Somebody make this shit make sense for me, because for me, it does not make no sense at all. And then you pile that up with some of the injuries that happened in this game. Evan Neal was playing right tackle. He didn't get hurt, and quite frankly, might have had one of the better days as far as the offensive line goes. But Jermaine Illuminor left this game with a quad injury. Azeez Ojulari left this game with a toe injury. I don't understand why people thought that this was going to be a good team. And I always tell y'all this, like, I hate to say I told you so. I hate to even say that, right? But like, there were people that were saying this was going to be a team that was going to finish the year 11-6. There were people that were saying this was going to be Daniel Jones' best year of his career and he would put up 25, 30 touchdowns. I said, let's just get to 20. Let's just get to 20. And then we get to what? 10 games throughout the season. Daniel Jones is benched. A couple days later, Daniel Jones is cut. We're going to talk about it in these overreactions. But none of this whole approach from Joe Schoen specifically, I'll lump in John Mara in the mix as well. None of this shit made sense, y'all. None of it made sense. Teams, and now they're trying to convince us that they're rebuilding. But teams that are rebuilding, they don't pay their quarterback $160 million. Teams that are rebuilding don't go out there and pay Brian Burns $28 million a year and give this dude upwards of $150 million. Teams that are rebuilding actually try to keep players that are homegrown that they drafted on the roster. Joe Schoen has failed to do all three of these things here. And yet and still, some people are still saying like, oh, we can't fire this guy because we can't keep firing GMs and we can't keep firing head coaches after every couple of years. Well, yes, you can. Because if they're not getting the job done and the results are not panning out, what is the purpose of keeping these dudes here in the New York Giants organization? What is the point? So that we can sit here and wait for 5 years and be in the exact same position and then be saying the same thing that we're talking about today, which is we need to fire these guys? Is that it? We're looking at a general manager who literally we had to go through years of suffering through Dave Gettleman. And Joe Schoen came in here and said, oh, y'all thought that shit was bad? Hold this beer one time real quick. And it's strong as fuck. It's a double IPA 10%er here. That's what Joe Schoen came in here and did. And now in year 3, they're telling us to be patient as fans. Y'all, look, I thought that I was prepared and cut out to watch the New York Giants play pathetic, terrible football for the rest of the season. I really don't know if I am. Because what we saw on Sunday, it really don't get no worse. The way that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were just walking up and down that field and the way that the New York Giants could just not sustain drives. I haven't even looked at how many 3-and-outs there were. I haven't even really looked at how many drives the Bucs were successful on out of however many drives they had. You could just watch that game as a child and just watch that whole entire game and understand what was going on there. Lack of quarterback play, bad personnel, bad defense, bad players on the field, lack of playmakers. You cannot expect an offense to move through a 21-year-old rookie wide receiver. And now you got a second-year undrafted free agent throwing him the ball. And I thought it was cool. You know, I laughed it off during the week like, Tommy DeVito, whatever, it'll be good to get a change of scenery. Boy, was I wrong on that. Because that was, and I'm not blaming this on Tommy DeVito. Tommy DeVito's got to go out there. Tommy DeVito's got to handle business. He's got to be able to put out good tape out there because his NFL livelihood is on the line. I don't blame him for going out there and trying to play good football. And honestly, I think he did his best. I give him his props for going out there and trying to play as well as he could. But Tommy DeVito is in a situation where he should not be in the situation. What? I can't even think about an undrafted rookie free agent quarterback that had to get thrown out there and actually start games. I can't even think about that. I can't even think about one. And Tommy DeVito started 6 games last year. And then here we go in his second year. He's back on the field starting games. It really doesn't make any sense. And I don't even think anybody can make sense of this for me. There's no explanation for this. This is bad. And to the people that supported the front office doing these moves, I don't know what to tell you at this point in time, but don't point the finger at me. All I did was just try to look at this, assess it a certain way. And look, I had the New York Giants at best case scenario winning 6 games. I honestly thought that the floor would be 4 games. Man, we'll be lucky if we can win 2 more games on this schedule for the rest of the season. I guess you got a shot against the Saints. I guess you got a shot here in 3 days on Thanksgiving against the Dallas Cowboys. And maybe against the Colts who just got beat 24-6. I think that was against the Detroit Lions. Maybe you got a shot. But right now, the New York Giants, we are in a worse place than when Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll got here. And that's crazy. That's crazy to say. Dave Gettleman left these guys 11 draft picks in 2022, and we have jack shit to show for it, yo. Nothing. Literally nothing. When it comes time to pay Kayvon Thibodeau, is that a guy y'all want to pay? When it comes time to pay Wan'Dale Robinson, is that a guy that y'all want to pay? When it comes time to pay Micah McFadden, who, give him his props, he was putting great effort out there yesterday. He had 5 tackles in the first quarter. I was so damn surprised by that. But is that a guy that you're going to want to pay after his contract expires, after his rookie contract expires? I can't even think of the other guys from that draft. They're just non-existent type of players. You go to the next draft. Did you guys see the play from JMS when he was going up against Vita Vea and how he was just completely dominated? Did y'all see that? I'm gonna try to upload this real quick because if you didn't see it, it's a must that you see this because for one, we spent a 2nd-round pick on this dude, and now we're looking at a guy in his 2nd year, or third. Is it 3rd year for now for JMS? His 2nd year, straight struggling. And this is a guy that strength was always one of the knocks on him, one of the issues. But this isn't his fault. This is Joe Schoen, another guy drafting out of need. I always thought, like, why did we bring in John Feliciano to be able to be a guy that could dictate the signals up front, which Mike Kafka told us out of his mouth in a Twitter Spaces where he said the initial checks at the line were coming from John Feliciano that year. Things were working out okay. Why did we move on from him? He's not an expensive guy. To me, that didn't make any sense. But look at this play here from Vita Vea on JMS, and he's highlighted here. This was on the broadcast. They definitely brought a lot of attention to John Michael Smith. Check this out.
Guys, keep your eyes on Vita Vea throughout this entire snap and see what he does to this Giants offensive line. Just drives over and runs a guy over against his will.
You can't expect Tommy DeVito to be doing too much when the interior of this offensive line is collapsing like that. And I'm not sitting up here making excuses about the offensive line because that is something that Joe Schoen addressed. But look at it. Same thing 2 years in a row. No contingency plan for when your left tackle goes out. You realized how important Andrew Thomas was to this offensive line playing left tackle a season ago, and when he got injured, what it did to your offensive line. We literally have evidence of our general manager on Hard Knocks speaking about it and even said that Patrick Mahomes wouldn't have been able to play against that or with that offensive line going up against the Miami Dolphins in Week 5 in the 2023 season, which was bullshit because that game, the New York Giants had 3 turnovers in that game. They had a pick 6 from Jason Pinnock where he returned it 100 yards. So you're looking at 7 points from the defense, and also in a game where the New York Giants were down by just 1 score at the half. But yeah, quarterbacks like Tommy DeVito and Daniel Jones, those guys are not going to be able to handle that type of situation, obviously. But this has been a failure. And most of this failure has been where we can point at the drafts. All of the youth that Joe Schoen has drafted in the first 2 drafts has been struggling. And a lot of people are crowning him as this 2024 draft class as a winning class, but we still got to see a lot more ball. What if Tyrone Tracy just isn't a guy next year? I mean, we have seen running backs come into the league and for 1 year maybe have a little bit of success, and possibly that success tends to diminish a little bit. When I look at Tyrone Tracy, he looks like a really good player, though. I think that from the 2024 draft, he will likely be one of the guys that will stick around. Tyler Nubin and Andrew Phillips look like decent players, but I'm not sitting up here saying that those guys are hits just yet. I can't do that. I just can't do that. Let's get to some of these super chats, and then we'll get to these overreactions. Big shout out to everybody in the building today, man. It's lit here on the Giant Overreaction, and it's kind of crazy because this is coming after one of the most devastating losses of the season, going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, where the Giants lost 30-7. Big shout out to Door Gunner one time in the building with the $5 super chat. He says, Giants, I love this statement right here. He says the Giants are BBL levels of ass. Team has gotten worse every season and looks unprepared. Total roster mismanagement. How can Daboll and Shane stay? To be honest, I don't know, Door Gunner. I really don't know. This situation right now is terrible, and I think it might take another week here or another 3 days because a lot of people have been speculating that the reason why the New York Giants haven't fired Brian Daboll or Joe Schoen is so that they can prepare for Dallas on a short week here with just 3 days before the game. I guess there's a little bit of validity to that. I could see that case for sure. But outside of that, the way that the results have been on the field, both these guys should absolutely be fired. They're not coaching well. Brian Daboll is an offensive-minded coach, and it's not working out for him. Our offense has been terrible. It's tough. It's tough, and I feel for John Mara a little bit, although he got himself into this situation, to be in a situation where you're looking at firing another head coach after just a couple of seasons here. That's a tough decision. And Malik Neighbors even said it at the press conference. You got to look in that mirror. That's what the New York Giants got to do. I've been saying that actually for about 2 seasons, that the Giants need to look in the mirror. I think it's a pretty obvious statement, though. But shout out to Door Gunner, man, for supporting us here on the Giant Overreaction. Door Gunner representing those Washington Commanders, too, man. Tough loss. I don't want to be the New York Giants, obviously, and I would much rather be the Washington Commanders than the New York Giants. But after that loss y'all suffered yesterday, I wouldn't want to be y'all today. Those are the kind of losses that they linger with you through the week, and you're really looking forward to just getting to the next week of football to get that stain of a loss out of your mind. But I do think the Commanders are a really good team. And again, man, shout out to Door Gunner for always pulling up, rocking out with us, and supporting. Shout out my dog, Pal 11 one time. Was representing on Bleacher Report yesterday as well for the $4.99 super chat. He says, now that we may have the first pick, would you rather have J.S. Dabe's first pick or new GM, new coach, and the first pick? Also, would you have as GM and coach, or like who would you have as the GM and the coach is I think what he's saying there. I think it's a better plan to have brand new everything. And I think the recent history kind of shows that. You know, you look at the Commanders, shout out to Door Gunner. You know, you look at the Commanders, they did that. They completely rebuilt and revamped that team. They only kept a few of those pieces over there, Terry McLaurin and just a few others. Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, you know, just a few guys. I'm surprised they kept Emmanuel Forbes on that roster. I'm sure they were trying to deal him at the deadline. Instead, though, they did go out there and revamp 2/3 of their roster. New coach, new owner, new OC, new DC, new offensive line coach, new offensive line, new edge rushers, new safeties, new cornerback over there now. Drafted a wide receiver, drafted a tight end, brought in a tight end from free agency in Zach Ertz. I like that option better. As far as my GM and head coach candidate, I'm not going to go there yet. Honestly, as a fan who follows football like a lot, I'm on football every day, New York Giants every day. I still don't feel like I'm comfortable to come up here and be like, this guy's the guy for the general manager job. I like what Brandon Brown has presented so far during his tenure as the assistant general manager with the New York Giants. If they decided to at least fire these guys in season and elevate Brandon Brown during the season and maybe give him a year or something, I wouldn't be opposed to that right now. But I really got to do a deep dive on a head coach search, look at some more philosophy, look at some more tape, you know, and really make sure that when I go out here and put out an opinion of who I think should be the next coach hired for the New York Giants, that I feel confident in it, you know, and I'm not there yet. I'm really not there yet. First pick, give me Cam Ward. If it's not Cam Ward, give me Shedeur Sanders, 100%. But shout out to Pal 11, man. I appreciate you supporting the channel and joining the conversation as well today. Let me just move backwards here on the chat a little bit and just kind of just see the temperature, see what everybody's talking about here. Let's see. Adam Costa said Cam Ward. Arsenal Domination says, I wouldn't be against Brandon as the GM. Adam also says, love Cam Ward. Let me see. Big Dog Status says that Deion knows how to put together a coaching staff. Yeah, and the one thing I will pump the brakes on with Deion Sanders is that the experience factor with Deion. You know, I know he went over there to Colorado, and he definitely has, like, really turned things around over there. I mean, he's got them as a ranked school right now. I mean, they did take a big loss this past weekend to Kansas. But I do like how, you know, the culture builder that Deion Sanders is. And I just love that he's a no-nonsense type of guy. He's going to be accountable, and he's going to hold everyone in his staff and on his roster accountable as well. That's why I like Deion Sanders. And I think that he's a good guy to deal with some of the larger personalities because he was a large personality himself. David Mann says, I like Jaden, but Cliff's offenses are infamous at this point for starting super hot and getting clamped down in November and December. Look, I challenge you, David, to actually find data on that, right? Because what people are doing right now, and me and the Beard talked about this in 2021 is when we brought that up. I feel like we were some of the first people to talk about Cliff Kingsbury, and as a head coach, his records actually falling off in the winter months. I know I got the numbers here. I could pull them up. I don't want to take too much time on this stream, but pretty much he's lost like at least 3 of his last 6 or 4 of his last 6, dating all the way back to his days at Texas Tech when he was the head coach, though. Now we're looking at Cliff Kingsbury as a guy who's an offensive coordinator. I would like somebody to find data on the offenses, though. Do the offenses actually completely fall apart, or are they just losing games in the winter? I think that those are 2 very different things, and I'm going to do myself the due diligence and go out there and do some research on it myself before we get to the preview show tomorrow at 7 p.m. here on this channel when we talk about recapping the NFC East. But I do think it's something to consider, and that it is a good point, David. Shout out my dog Lucas in the building one time, says Burton Ernie could do better job than Daboll and Joe. Definitely, most definitely. I mean, these guys have been a literal clown show since they've been here. John says clean house and poach from the Lions, John Dorsey and Ben Johnson. I'm not too mad at bringing in Ben Johnson. We'll see, you know, what kind of jobs he might be willing to take when the season is over. Francis Moran says that Mara is soft. We don't know about Tish. It seems like Tish always got to come in when shit hits the fan. And I heard that Tish is coming into the office either today or yesterday to have some conversations with some people. So I think that, you know, Tish came in there and had a couple of conversations that led to maybe Daniel Jones asking for his release. And I think that these new conversations might have a lot to do with Brian Daboll and with Joe Schoen. Bluegrass Picker in the building. That's my dog. What's going on, fam? He said, pulling up a seat, keeping it as real as always, or keeping it real as always. You know I try. You know I try. Let me see. David Mann says, dude, you need to get off the quarterback position. Who cares at this point? The roster stinks. That's the point. A top 8 franchise quarterback wouldn't even get this team to 500. We have a negative 8-point score differential. You really think that? You really think that a top 8 quarterback wouldn't get this team to 500? I mean, look at the one-score games with Daniel Jones at the quarterback position where he's played pretty pathetic. You don't think that a top 8 quarterback? I'll just agree to disagree on that one. And I'm somebody who fixates on the quarterback position because I don't know if you agree with this, but I'm seeing this around the league, and I'm 100% a supporter of this, that quarterback is the most important position in sports, and the New York Giants have not had a good quarterback since maybe 2013, maybe. We're talking over a decade that the New York Giants have been having poor quarterback play. If you don't think it's important, that's on you. But I'm going to continue to talk about the quarterback position until the New York Giants fix it. Let me see. Lucas says also have to have a new front office. I totally agree right there. Ben Ayers says the Commanders are 7-5. They were 7-5 in 2022 with Heineke starting under Ron. Yeah, that's true. But I think Taylor Heineke was a pretty decent backup quarterback. And that team, a lot of people in Washington thought that the Commanders at that time were a quarterback away. You can't forget that they had spent 5 first-round draft picks on that line. They had Cameron Curl at the safety position. The defense was much better than what we thought it would be. They had a top 10 defense a couple of years before that, I want to say as well. And I just think it's a different type of 7-5. They weren't committed to the rebuild at that time when they were 7-5 with Ron Rivera. And I really want to say, I almost want to look that up. Was that 2022? I almost want to give me a second. I want to look up those game logs, Ben, to just kind of confirm that, because Taylor Heineke was absolutely the quarterback in 2022, but they were 7-5. They came out. Yeah, 2023 is the year that they tanked. What did the Commanders finish in 2022? Because the Giants had 9 wins. Did the Commanders go on to not win any other, just one more game? So they finished 8-1 that year. Let me take a peek at these games. Yeah, so the Commanders started off 1-4 that season, and then they won. That's very different. That's very different, Ben. So they started off 1-4, 1-5, and then they went on a 3-game winning streak to improve to 4-5, and then they lost and fell to 4-6. Do you think that's the same as this year starting out? What did the Commanders start out? 7-1, 7-2? I don't look at that as the same, bro. Simeon says clean sheet of paper. I'll feel you on that. D-Nice77 says, so the plan is to fire the front office now and hope the interim coach gets a few meaningless wins. Who is saying that? Who is saying that? Yeah, man, listen, what is the point of waiting until the end of the year if you're going to fire these guys? Why not get the early search? Why not make it so that when teams are in the playoffs, you're the front runner at trying to find a head coach of teams of coaches that are maybe on other teams right now, maybe an offensive coordinator who's going to be a viable head coach option. Why not just fire them now if you're going to fire them at the end of the season? And I don't think anybody is saying the plan is to fire them now and hope the interim head coach gets a few meaningless wins. I don't think anybody's saying that, D-Nice. Leon says, why is that not letting me see it? Let me refresh that. There we go. So Leon says, Neighbors talked about his dislike for losing and being left out, especially noted during the second half in Hard Knocks. Yeah, he did. He said that, and he had some beef with that. We're going to get to that, too. That's going to be one of the overreactions. Francis Moran says, Brandon, the next GM, ha. Yeah, I mean, it's funny till it ain't, to be honest. I like Brandon Brown. He's definitely just a competent type of dude. And I saw his frustrations on Hard Knocks with some of the decisions that Joe Schoen was making. Do I necessarily want to go that route with another unproven guy? Not necessarily, but if he did get an opportunity, I wouldn't be upset. Big Dog Status says the 100th season is a straight embarrassment. I know Mayor is livid. Absolutely. Absolutely. Arsenal Domination says there can be no complaints if the Giants go with a new quarterback, a new head coach, and a new general manager next season. Oh, this is my dog right here. Big shout out to Dom from the UK one time. I forgot you told me that was the new name. I'm glad you reminded me. Appreciate that, fam. Yeah, that's a fact. I mean, look, the expectations for this team from the fan base were placed on the fan base from the front office. You go out there, one, I understand that the 2022 season obviously makes things look like they're better than they really are. But sometimes you got to really look at things for what it is. And look at the pivotal wins by the New York Giants in 2022. It was really 2 games. It was the Packers game and the Ravens game. Outside of that, the schedule was extremely easy, and I don't think people should have fell for that. I really don't. And, I mean, I can speak for myself. I didn't fall for it. I looked at it like, okay, I was ecstatic after Daniel Jones put up a lifetime performance against the Minnesota Vikings. Great. That was awesome. Looking like he was headed towards being the franchise quarterback. Goes out there against the Philadelphia Eagles in the divisional round. Falls flat on his face. I mean, just a terrible performance, and the New York Giants get dog walked. Then we had all that time, during the ending of the playoffs and whatnot of the 2022 regular season, and it gave me time to think about what the New York Giants should do moving forward. The rhetoric that I was seeing being thrown out there was that Daniel Jones was going to command $35 to $40 million. I was out right there. There's no way I'm paying that guy $40 million. So, I just think that this team, they couldn't see it, and that trickled down into the fan base thinking that the New York Giants were closer than they really were. And even Joe Schoen, as recent as just a couple of weeks ago, I want to say after the Carolina game when he addressed the media, he said that we're 1-4 or 1-5 in one-score games, and we're close. That's just the craziest statement to say when the New York Giants need to be ripping this thing down and really just committing to the rebuild and keeping the pieces that they deem, productive for the future. That's really what it is. Marjorie's in the building. What's going on, Marjorie? Marjorie says Bears got rid of their OC and their offense. Definitely improved, but their defense still sucks. Yeah, the Bears, you want to talk about teams that are close. Look at how they're losing their games. Look at how they lost by 3 on Sunday. Look at how they lost to the Commanders on a Hail Mary on the last play. Look at how they lost to the Chiefs on a blocked field goal. Like, you want to talk about close. You don't hear Ryan Poles talking about we're close. They got to win games. That's just what it is. Jester says that I don't want a first-year head coach. I'm with you on that. I want somebody that's experienced, which is why I'm not too upset about the whole Bill Belichick talk either. I know a lot of people don't like that, but listen, for me, I wouldn't mind bringing in Bill Belichick. He wouldn't be a top candidate or nothing like that for me just yet, but I wouldn't mind. Let me see. Pal11 says, might be a hot take. Is Brian Burns the next Leonard Williams? Very good player on a massive contract, unnecessary for a rebuilding team. You're the first person I've heard make this comparison, and I don't think that's that hot of a take. I think it's pretty accurate. Like, if Brian Burns does not mature, we're talking about a guy now that's in what? Year 6, maybe? I think Brian Burns is in year 6. Let me see. Played out the rookie contract. They gave him the 5th-year option, I want to say. And in a contract year, yeah, so this is his 6th season. It's looking like that a lot, bro. Like, yeah, most definitely. Door Gunner says they go at the end of the season. It wouldn't surprise me because John Mara, he's not one of them kind of dudes. He's not one of them kind of dogs that's going to be like, man, you know what? I'm tired of this shit. These guys fired. Adam Costa says that Mike Kafka is an expensive assistant. That's facts. And I think that it's really good for Mike Kafka that he was not the OC this year. I think it's gonna yield some good results for him when he goes out there and tries to get another job somewhere else as maybe an offensive coordinator or somewhere helping out somebody's offense. Ben Ayers says that Brian Daboll is the Brandon Staley of offense. It's crazy because Brandon Staley, when he had his personnel, when he was with the Rams, he was a really good defensive coordinator. But that was with Aaron Donald. When he got to the Chargers, he tried to supplement that lack of personnel that they had in the interior portion of that defensive line. And he just never quite got to it. I thought he was a really good coach when he was with the Rams, but he was a terrible head coach, that's for sure. Strider says, I don't think they're staying. I feel they will be fired when season ends. There's no effort. Yeah, like, we'll talk about it. But I would prefer to see these guys get fired now. I really would. And I came into it last week with, talking with the Beard and the Beard being like, just fire them now. And I'm like, man, I don't know about Brian Daboll, but unless this is absolutely a tank job and they're looking to get their quarterback here in the 2025 draft, yeah, I think it's time you might want to let these guys go. Simeon says, I think Daboll could be a good OC, not a head coach. Yeah, and he's shown that, he can be a good OC when he was with the Buffalo Bills with Josh Allen. And, he had his franchise quarterback, and he definitely was a really good offensive coordinator. I think that's what got him the job here. Eric Rivera says that BBL equals Big Blue losers. Yeah, we're the worst franchise right now in all the sports. It's pretty bad. Let's get to a couple more of these super chats one time. Keith Wilson Jr. is in the building with the $4.99 super chat. He says, salute OG, man. This team is background cleaning music at this point. If that, bro. Tired of it. Salute my Canes, but Cam got to tighten up. Pick was horrible yesterday. Yeah, Cam's got to tighten up. And those are the things that people worry about with Cam. Just getting a little bit off script a little bit and making some errant throws. But I'm a big fan of Cam Ward. I think that, you get him in the right locker room with the right head coach, the right, people to come in here and groom him as a quarterback and kind of iron out some of those deficiencies in his game. I think he can be one of the greats in this game, actually. I really do. I really believe that Cam Ward can be one of the great quarterbacks in the NFL here to come. But shout out to Keith Wilson. I appreciate that, fam. Talking Eco coming in with the $4.99 super chat. What's going on, fam? He says, I wanted an experienced head coach. I want an experienced head coach now. Give me Bill Belichick, Mike Vrabel, or Brian Flores. Doubt he'll ever come here. A second chance like the Giants did with Tom Coughlin in 2004. Yeah, I would be all for that. Mike Vrabel is another name being thrown around. I would welcome Mike Vrabel with open arms. I was really surprised the Tennessee Titans moved on for him. I thought that was interesting. And if you do bring in Mike Vrabel, that maybe gives you a shot to keep some of the continuity on defense with Shane Bowen as the defensive coordinator. I think Shane Bowen has been, pretty decent. I mean, this defense can't stop the run, but a lot of that has to do with the personnel that he has up front. Especially on the edges, not having those dogs like he had when he was with the Tennessee Titans and having these two lean kind of type of archetype guys in Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau. So I think you get him the right personnel. I think that he can figure out a way to stop the run, just like he did when he was with the Tennessee Titans. But we'll see, man. This is going to be an interesting offseason. I thought that last season was going to be one of the most interesting offseasons to date for me as a podcaster, in the 6 years that we've been doing this. But the 2025, draft and free agent period, this is going to be an amazing one in the hiring process of what we're likely to see, which is going to be Brian Daboll and Joe Shane fired. It's going to be an interesting year for the New York Giants. And looking at the way the Commanders handled it, I think John Mara, has an idea of how to move forward and seeing that with some results from other teams like the Commanders and like the Houston Texans. Man, big shout out to Joe Winograd, man, for the $50 super chat, bro. That's a major donation to the channel. I appreciate that, man. You've been rocking out with us too for a while here now, and your presence here is more important than the $50 you just donated. But that definitely means a lot, in support to this channel. But Joe says, "Hey Giants fam, just tuning in. What's the vibe like? I know how I feel. I only watch on Red Zone now. BT and Sal made a good point. Fire Joe Shane and Brian Daboll after this season so a new regime can draft their guy. Otherwise, you're committing long-term to these guys." It literally would be tripling down on a mistake, because you allowed these guys to come in here in 2022 and assess the quarterback position. They made the wrong decision by declining Daniel Jones' fifth-year option. And then they doubled down on that mistake when the following season overachieved and they paid Daniel Jones $40 million a year. Now to allow these guys to go out here and draft their quarterback, and let's say they go out here and they make the wrong pick. Let's say these guys bypass the top talent at the quarterback position here in the 2025 draft, and we're sitting here again puzzled at trying to figure out what the New York Giants need to do with the quarterback position. That would be 3 strikes. And really, I don't think that John Mara should allow them to get to that point. I think that's a great point by BT and Sal. If you're going to allow somebody to get their next quarterback, I think it should be a new head coach, a new general manager as well. We know what Brian Daboll can do with the franchise quarterback. We know that. And if you want to try to find a way to retain him as the offensive coordinator, which right now it's not looking that good because Brian Daboll has, quite frankly, been coaching very poorly. I do think that it's time you part ways. I really do. And allow a coach to come in here and get his own quarterback. And, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, move on, try to draft another quarterback. But we got to put all this behind us, this whole 6-year experiment with Daniel Jones at the quarterback position and, just the incompetence at the general manager position now for 2 straight general managers. You could argue a third as well during the last few years of Jerry Reese, but Jerry Reese at least got a couple of Super Bowls there. But, Joe, appreciate you, bro. That's a major donation, man. I appreciate you, big dog. Salute to you. Jay is in the building. Shout out Jay one time with the $4.99 super chat. Jay says, just a tough spot. You want to tank. It's here and it's a problem. You win games and you were in the same position as last year. Trade picks to move up. Yeah, and it's going to be so tough this year. You got a lot of teams now in this top 5 of the draft right now that are going to want a quarterback. And then there are going to be some teams that are going to be sitting outside of that are going to want to draft a quarterback as well. And are they going to be willing to trade up? And now you're talking about bidding for the spot to be able to get a quarterback when the New York Giants were in position to draft one last year. I mean, Bo Nix was there, and he's playing well. Bo Nix wasn't high on my radar. I'm not going to sit up here and tell you guys any lies or anything and act like I was like a big Bo Nix fan. I didn't have much hate towards him. I didn't like him as a prospect that much either, though. But he's playing well in Denver. You could argue that he's playing better football right now than Jaden Daniels is. And then you passed up on Michael Penix. You also passed up on J.J. McCarthy, and instead you went out there and you drafted a wide receiver to try to help out your quarterback. It all just didn't make any sense. And, yeah, it's a tough spot. I've been talking about that for about 2 weeks. When it comes to rebuilding the New York Giants right now, I don't know where to start. And I'm really going to need some time to, like, just sit down for a whole day and do as much research as I possibly can and combine that with the knowledge that I already have to try to figure out what is the best approach for the New York Giants right now. And I think that is the tough spot and the tough question for all New York Giants fans across the country right now is, do we clean house? Do we get rid of some of our cornerstone pieces? Andrew Thomas's, Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, Bobby Okereke, Kayvon Thibodeau, even guys that are, role players like a Darius Slayton on an expiring contract, a Wan'Dale Robinson. Do we get rid of some of these guys and just start, completely start over, clean slate with a new general manager, a new head coach, get a new quarterback? I really don't know if that's the best option moving forward, to be honest. But I know one thing for certain, the New York Giants have to figure out a way to continue to draft better and build on what they did in 2024 and just bring in new talent, new young talent that is going to be homegrown and be here for years to come and capitalize those players being on their rookie deals. But a big shout out to Jay, man. I appreciate the super chat here. Shout out to Kefla one time in the building for the $5 super chat. He says, hey, sorry if this is a stupid question. I don't follow stuff like this, but who is Tisch? So Steve Tisch is the other majority owner with John Mara. So I believe they both have equal parts of the New York Giants, but he's the guy that comes in and, when it's time to really make some real decisions, because he's not as involved in the football operations day to day as John Mara is. I don't know what the reasoning for that is, but he just isn't. And when, situations get to be dire need the way that they are right now, you that's when you see Steve Tisch pop up and, along with John Mara, make these tough decisions. So not a stupid question. Not everybody's really following some of this stuff on the back end of the front office with the New York Giants. So not a stupid question at all, but salute to you, man. I appreciate you donating. And, our community could have helped you out with this, man. You could have saved your $5, but I appreciate you having 5 on it. Shout out to the Loonies one time, bro. All right. I'm going to catch up with y'all down at the bottom here. Man, gang is in the building. Big shout out to Giants Nation, man, for showing up, showing out, man. Especially after that brutal loss there. Shout out Emilio F one time. I don't know why this one just stood out to me. He said it's a painful process, but the Giants need to keep losing and lock in that number 1 pick in the draft. There's some good talent on the team, but we need a good quarterback with a high upside. Stay on the course. Love that take, bro. That's spot on right there. Ben Ayers says that Brandon Brown was with the Eagles in 2021. Notable coaches for Eagles 2021 are Denard Wilson, Shane Steichen, who's now a head coach, and John Gannon, who's also a head coach right now as well. That's a good point. It's a really good point. Glad you reminded me about Brandon Brown being with the Philadelphia Eagles and Howie Roseman in that front office. Like, yeah, he knows what it takes. He's seen it at least. Now, let me not say he knows what it takes. He has seen with his own 2 eyes what it takes to build a good team. Let me just see. We'll scroll up here. Pal 11 says that also the Titans have a good defense. I know you love Denard Wilson as our defensive coordinator. Yeah, man, that was my top candidate. Hometown, definitely got some folks that know the family well. I was the one that broke the news about Denard Wilson, and that the reason why he didn't take the New York Giants job was because the Giants did not want to give him full, they didn't want to give him the option to be able to bring in his own staff. They wanted him to keep and retain some of the guys that the New York Giants had already had on the staff. I imagine that's guys like Jerome Patterson or Andre Patterson and Jerome Henderson. So, he decided that he would go a different way. But he was my top candidate after doing all the research. Shane Bowen was not really on my radar because I thought the Titans were going to bring back Shane Bowen. But yeah, Titans defense is pretty good this year. There is an alarming stat about their defense, though, that they give up the worst field position in special teams in the entire league, and it's by a mile. Shout out to Mina Kimes, who brought that to my attention. So a lot of teams are having short fields against them, but Denard Wilson has been known for correcting secondaries and having his pass defense be at the top of the league. The Eagles were at the top of the league in 2021, I believe that was, when he was the secondary coach over there. And then when he went to the Baltimore Ravens, which was actually all 2022 and 2023. So 2022 was with the Eagles. 2023, when he went with the Ravens, they won the Triple Crown on defense, and they had the #1 pass defense in the league as well. Yeah, right? That was a nice donation. Yeah. A big shout out to Joe, man. That was major. Kind of want to highlight that, but I can't. Red X3R0's in the building. What's going on, dog? Hope all is well. He says the moment the locker room quit on a coach, you got to fire him. And since Daboll and Shane are a pair, you got to fire both of them. I don't disagree with that at all. Corey Robinson is in the building. He says, I don't think they wanted DJ. From Hard Knocks, it looks like the GM wanted DJ. I think Daboll just burnt out from sorry-ass quarterback play. That could be the case. Yeah, and I do give Daboll the benefit of the doubt there that if indeed he was not on board with the whole Daniel Jones contract and bringing him back as the starter, then I think John Mara is going to be looking at this a certain way. There's no telling how these conversations go in that front office, right? There could be meetings between Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll, and then Joe Schoen goes to John Mara to speak about them as a duo package and tells them what we want out of it. Or at the same time, maybe John Mara is having conversations with Brian Daboll. We really don't know. That's the tough part about it. Yeah, that's really the tough part about it. Like, and I can't speak on it on things I don't know, but I guess we can speculate. Bob Blister says Cam Ward or Shadur Sanders on the way. Authentic, we'll be all right. He's got to lose these next couple of games. Eddie Nash says all records are created equal. The Bucs lost 4 games. What does that say? Were ended in OT or on a last minute of the game, 4 points or less. Oh yeah. I see what you're saying there. So you're saying all records are not created equal. Maybe somebody was talking about the Bucs record. Yeah, because the Bucs are a team that I feel like their record is not an indication of what caliber team they really are. They were still trying to adjust to the losses of Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. And you're right, all their games that they have lost have been close games. You talked about the overtime game. It's a combined 14 points that they have lost by in all 4 games. So, yeah, it's not the same thing. Shout out Charles Kenny in the building one time. He says, awful performance. Players themselves saying soft says it all. Hard to get the locker room back. That's a fact right there. Hassan Mendoza says Mara should fire both Shane and Daboll. The locker room has turned on Daboll. That is what it's looking like right now. Pal 11 says might be a hot take again, but I know Daboll is like the quarterback whisperer because of Josh Allen. But I think Josh Allen this year is best version of Josh Allen, and that is 3 years after Daboll left Buffalo. That's a good point. And Josh Allen even went through Ken Dorsey and still saw a lot of success. Yeah, he was turning the ball over a little bit, but he was still putting up like 30 touchdowns through the air. So, yeah, Josh Allen has proven that he can do it without Brian Daboll. Brian Daboll has yet to prove that he can do it without Josh Allen. That one guy, 123, says Giants really thought a rookie was going to save Daniel Jones. Bro, it's crazy. It's crazy. Shout out my dog, Ben Dawson. He been repping for me on Twitter, man, one time. He said, did someone say Cam Ward has a low IQ? How do you figure? Wow. Gonna have to take that up with whoever said that in the chat. But, yeah, that is an interesting thing to say about a guy that I would say none of us truly know. Let me see. Hector Henriquez says start with new front office and coach. I like that. Let me see. Lucas Aiken says, is Bo Nix doing what he's doing without Sean Payton? I'm not 100% sure, but I do think that Sean Payton was smart enough to bring in a quarterback like Bo Nix that he knew could, fit well within his offense. That one guy said, clean house, Thomas is stuck here, though. Dex, I love the guy, but if it must be done, he should go. Don't care if Kayvon is here or not. Yeah, I'm not mad at that take at all. David says, LOL. You all want to trade up for these crap prospects. Better off signing a bridge and trading back up into first or sitting second. The Giants aren't going to have to trade up, likely. I mean, they're the worst team in football right now. Jacksonville Jaguars own the #1 pick, but Trevor Lawrence is getting healthy. I expect them to win more games than us. But I don't even see what's funny in that whole situation. But do you, bro? Let me see. Adam Costa said they need a guy like Mike V, a guy that got the Titans to the top of the AFC and can develop talent. Good teams have great depth. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Rabel. Ben Dawson says that Cam Ward is not a crap prospect. He's not. everybody's entitled to their own opinion, I guess. Some are more egregious than others, but I don't understand how a guy that is pushing for the Heisman Trophy right now is a crap prospect. That don't make sense to me either. David says, a new regime is needed because you can't let them force a quarterback. I can live with drafting one high, either Ward or Nuss, but it needs to be because it's the best option and not a Hail Mary. They need a quarterback. What bridge quarterback are they going to bring in here? Even if they bring in the bridge, are they going to do that without a rookie? You have to draft a quarterback this year. We've been saying this shit for 4 years. It's crazy. Mace Winter says, how did Joe Schoen expect this season to play out? His moves indicate to me he was hoping to be in this exact position, to move away from Daniel Jones, draft a quarterback, but didn't do the math on keeping his job. Again, this is speculation. Excuse me. I think that Joe Schoen was invested in Daniel Jones. I think that Joe Schoen thought that Daniel Jones could get the job done. It just seemed like on Hard Knocks, he was convincing everybody else in that front office of why they needed to roll with Daniel Jones and allow Saquon Barkley to walk in free agency. It's just speculation, but that's how I see it. And do I think that maybe John Mara was having some influence from the top? Like, yeah, this guy went out there and won a playoff game, 9 wins, had his best season, blew out his knee after. Let's continue to build around him. It's quite possible it is, but I also think that John Mara was willing to give Joe Schoen the keys to the organization and go out there and draft a quarterback as well. And they failed to do that. They didn't make a true viable pitch at the New England Patriots. I mean, you heard it on Hard Knocks where the Patriots general manager was basically saying, like, yeah, we're not going to let this go for nothing too easy. It's going to take something outrageous like 3 first-round picks to be able to move up and take this position up off of us. They were in the rebuild as well. I think there was a possibility you could have offered something, but it would have took a lot to get the quarterback position, solidified in the draft by jumping up and taking the Patriots pick at pick 3. It would have been tough, but I think Joe Schoen was just invested. I really think that he thought Daniel Jones could keep his team at least at average until they figured out the quarterback situation, especially while bringing in Malik Neighbors. And then, unfortunately, that didn't happen. Let me see. We got a couple of super chats that just came in as well. Let me see. Did I get that one from John? Shout out to John Young one time in the building for the $4.99 super chat. He says, I think the plan is to tank. I think their argument was you told us give him a chance, Daniel Jones, and we did. Now we get our guy. I just don't understand why they wouldn't have done that last season. Like, why they wouldn't have done it in the draft in 2024 when you had 2 quarterbacks that are likely better than maybe all the quarterbacks in this draft in J.J. McCarthy and Michael Penix, and you decided to go the opposite way. I don't know. It's hard to tell, to be honest. I mean, we can speculate as much as we want to, but if that's the case, then you can expect Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll to be back this season. But shout out to John Young, man. Appreciate you supporting the channel, my dog. And big shout out to Dean one time with the $4.99 super chat. Dean says, I'm an hour behind, so I have to play catch up. Make sure you put that on 2 times, Dean, by the time you get right here. He says, I'm sorry, but Shane can't survive the Saquon thing. Him and McKinney are going to be all pros. Come on. Yeah, it was a bad move. We'll talk about that. I'm going to get into the giant overreactions right now as well. It's a bad move. It's just a bad. There's no other way to look at it. It's a bad move. And Dean sent in another one for $1.99. Dean says, Shane has clearly demonstrated he isn't it. And I totally agree with you on that. There's no other way to look at it. Like, this guy's learning on the job, and I'm not saying that Joe Schoen can't be a good GM one day, but I do think he's better suited to be a cap type of guy rather than be running an NFL franchise. When it comes to evaluating talent, I think that he's just way behind. And I wonder how much Brian Daboll's input is, influencing what we do here on the New York Giants, because it just seemed like when he wanted Brian Burns, he goes up to Shane Bowen and it's just like, hey, how would you feel about getting Brian Burns? It was just a bad move. Shane had, man, my boy Dash listed off the free agent signings from 2023 from Joe Schoen. And I think I can pull these up fast enough to just kind of run through these names real quick for you. And it's god-awful. It's god-awful. It's just, there's no way around it. So the 2023 free agents, big shout out to Big Dash Knows. And if you're not already subscribed to Big Dash, go take a look at his channel. He puts out really good New York Giants content as well. The 2023 free agents were Darren Waller, Jamison Crowder, Lawrence Cager. You brought in Isaiah Hodgins as a free agent signing, Jack Anderson, Amani Oruwariye. Do you remember that cornerback we got from Detroit? Where is he now? Bobby McCain, Paris Campbell, Darius Slayton, Jihad Ward, Jeff Smith. I don't even know who that is. Bobby Okereke, which is a pretty decent one. Matt Breida. We forgot about him, right? Nacho, Sterling Shepard, Gerard Davis. These were guys that were re-signed as free agents. Leonard Johnson. I don't even know who that is. Wyatt Davis. In 2022, it was Ricky Seals-Jones, Tyrod Taylor, Mark Glowinski, John Feliciano, C.J. Board, Robert Foster, no clue, Jamil Douglas, Jihad Ward, Justin Ellis, Richie James, and Casey Kreider. Come on, man. We know the drafts during the first 2 years were terrible, but like you look at those free agent names, there's nothing there, man. This dude is not good at doing his job, and I think there's no way around that. Big Dog Status says you let 2-star captains of the team walk, then replace them with rookies, thinking that would be the answer. Pack up your stuff, sir. You're done. And do you know the crazier part about it is he's using that he's had to play these rookies, that these guys have played a bunch of snaps and have been contributors to the New York Giants defense as an excuse for it. Like, he is so oblivious to what he has done right now in piling on to how bad this franchise has been. Ben Dawson says the only reason I feel bad for Brian Daboll is I don't think his thoughts on certain players were not taken seriously in consideration, and he was forced to coach and play the players that Shane chose. That could absolutely be the case. That could absolutely be the case. Francis says that good point. Giants could have drafted Nix, McCarthy, held for a year and traded for draft capital, right? Absolutely. And for me, it would have been Michael Penix. I can't go without mentioning his name in that mix because I think Michael Penix was the better pure passer of all those quarterbacks. Strider says, authentic, I want Cam Ward, but I would like a solid veteran quarterback to start first before Ward, like Flacco or Winston. DeVito should not be a starter or a mentor. 100%. Like, you would love it if we could bring in a guy like Jameis Winston. Man, listen, Jameis Winston's like my favorite football player right now. Like, this dude is just like the perfect locker room guy. The positive attitude, even when you can admit that the Cleveland Browns, when they were sitting there at 2-7 or 2-8, and Deshaun Watson is out for the season, that as far as being hopeless, they were probably more hopeless than the New York Giants because the Cleveland Browns had spent the #1 amount of money in salary cap entering this season. They had players on that roster, and they had high expectations to go into the playoffs and possibly make a deep push if their quarterback and Deshaun Watson could get things back on track. And here comes Jameis Winston, all positive, all praises to God, right? The greatest pregame speeches in the world, going out there and leading that team now to 2 victories, one of those being against one of the better teams in the entire National Football League. So big shout out to Jameis Winston. I would love to have him be the guy that would be the starter here for New York to start the season while you're grooming Cam Ward and making sure that he's absolutely ready to play when he is and not being just thrown out there to the wolves like we've seen with the Colts and Anthony Richardson. That would be amazing. Let me see. Shout out to Toxic Tom in the building. He says, sounds like Joe Shane is like Daniel Jones, a nice guy who just isn't good enough. Yeah. And you got to put all these things around him to make it seem like he's a good general manager. It's the same thing with Daniel Jones on the field. There's no difference. Simeon says that Penix is the guy I wanted in the draft. Me too. Y'all know that. If y'all were watching these streams during that time, I wanted Michael Penix at 6, and I was praying to God that Xavier Legette would be there when we picked in the second round, especially before we got rid of that the second-round pick from the Seattle Seahawks trade with Leonard Williams, and we ended up using that to trade for Brian Burns. I thought that second pick was going to be on Xavier Legette. When that didn't happen, Adonai Mitchell was out there. There were other wide receivers you could have gotten, obviously. I think Malik Neighbors is an incredible talent, but at the same time, I don't think the Giants were in a position to be able to go out there and draft a wide receiver at 6 overall. They should have drafted a quarterback. Big Dog says, I guarantee if McKinney and Barkley was still here, the locker room wouldn't be in shambles the way it is right now. Preaching to the choir, brother. That is 100% facts, Big Dog. That is facts right there. Pal 11 says, and the guard that Shane picked over Saquon, most likely Runyon, is just average, if he even is. Didn't look at PFF yet. I haven't looked at all the grades this week, but I did look at the total pressures defensively. That's the number that I like to take a look at, before I come on live with these streams and whatnot. But John Runyon has not stood out to be anything great, to be honest. I think he's a pretty good player, though. Ben Dawson saying he wanted Penix Jr. as well. Sank Zappa says that the Giants could have drafted Penix and Ladd McConkey if they didn't trade for Brian Burns. Could have kept Saquon too. There you go. That's another wide receiver we could have got if we didn't get rid of that pick. And Platinum Power 2 times says, don't forget Jameis also beat the Ravens, not only the Steelers. Yeah. Went out there and upset the Ravens. And then the Steelers in the snow. What a gutsy performance after throwing an interception, which looked like it was going to be their last opportunity. Jameis Winston leading them down there for a victory, man. He's a solid quarterback. And I've always said that if Jameis Winston was Daniel Jones, they would have parted ways with him after 3 or 4 seasons. They would have definitely not brought him back on that contract. And we're talking about a guy who's one of 20-some-odd players to ever throw for 5,000 yards. I mean, yeah, he threw 30 interceptions that year as well, but he still put up 5,000 yards. Let me see. David says, if we drafted a quarterback to this dumpster fire, 90% of the people would be calling him a probable bust. That's because it is a fact that we have one of the most idiotic fan bases out there. And they're going to listen to whatever the front office is telling them. And if they tell them it's a good move, they're going to say it's a good move. They're going to be on board until it ain't. And then they're going to act like they didn't say that. But here's the thing, David, I'm willing to bring in a rookie quarterback with the bridge quarterback, right? Allow them to struggle for a year. Allow them to struggle for 2 years. I wouldn't even mind if they struggle for 3 years. Just commit to the process that most teams in the NFL are winning behind, which is drafting a quarterback, getting him on a rookie deal, building around that quarterback on a rookie deal, and then once you have the pieces around him, then extend that quarterback to the contract that he deserves at that moment in time. But we're not even abiding by the process. It's been Daniel Jones and Eli Manning since 2004. That's not okay. And let's go from 2012. Let's go 2012. We'll give Eli the benefit of the doubt because he won 2 damn Super Bowls. This is another good point by David here. He says, every player we've had seems to do much better statistically in their next spot. Football is a team sport. Your surrounding parts matter. The roster as a whole sucks. Yeah, and this roster is built by a person that honestly does not know what he's doing right now. And I don't know why we thought that this team, some people thought that this team was going to be a good team coming into the season, but that is a really good point that you're making right there. Like, you see guys like John Feliciano, Will Hernandez, and countless others go to other teams and put up better statistical performances, and you can just see it with your eyes on the field. They're just putting better tape out there. Even coaches, you saw it with Bobby Johnson here. Everybody was calling for Bobby Johnson to be fired, right, as the offensive line coach. He's fired. The Washington Commanders hire him, and literally I could see it in the comment section on a bunch of Twitter posts where Washington Commanders are talking about, their fans are talking about hiring Bobby Johnson, and people are saying he's the worst O-line coach in the league. And look at them now. I think they have like the 7th least sacks in the NFL right now. You bring in a decisive quarterback, it fixes a lot of those deficiencies that you're going to have up front with an offensive line. I'll continue to say it. An offensive lineman's best friend is a decisive quarterback. I will continue to say it. And even what's my man that was on the podcast with us, Justin Pugh, agreed with that. He was like, man, I cannot count how many players and how many coaches have gotten jobs off the strength of decisive quarterbacks over the years. So it all functions together, from owner to general manager to head coach to quarterback to the offense. It all functions together. But I am not one that's going to sit up here and act like you can win anything without having a franchise quarterback. That ain't going to happen. That's not going to happen. And if it's not a franchise quarterback, then he has to be playing at least elite level football. I mean, we look at the last 2 Super Bowl winners who are likely not going to be Hall of Famers, over the last 2 decades even. It's Joe Flacco and Nick Foles. And Joe Flacco at the time when he won the Super Bowl with the Ravens was absolutely playing elite football at that time. And that's what got him paid, which you can't go back and look at that one as a mistake, kind of how we look at the way that Daniel Jones signing was a mistake, because the Giants didn't win the Super Bowl. They won a playoff game against the worst defense, the worst pass defense in the entire NFL. But this is a good point you make, David. 13th Giant says, I said this yesterday, but looking back, if we drafted a competent quarterback in the draft last year, it probably would have masked the magnitude of this front office's incompetence. Absolutely. Absolutely. Shout out to Ridiculous Nicholas in the building. I see you, fam. Let me see. Zani says that Saquon was the clear leader on the offense. Not signing him not only affects our offense, but also affects the players who no longer have a star to look up to and follow suit. That's facts, too. That's definitely facts. Big Dog Status said, man, Lamar Jackson played on the franchise tag after an MVP season. DJ wins a playoff game and gets a major payday with a terrible resume. Something ain't right, boss. You know what it is. You know exactly what it is. Toxic Tom says, not a Giants fan, but I don't know how you keep the same front office and coaching staff after hope they can how you keep the same front office and coaching staff and hope they can develop a young quarterback. I'm with you on that. Pal says, bro, no Rodgers. He left Green Bay because they drafted Jordan Love, and they traded Zach Wilson because he did not want to mentor him. We all know Rodgers is the GM of football. Francis says the Giants process sucks. That's a fact. Shout out to the Illa in the building. What's going on, my dog? Make sure y'all go subscribe to the Illa NYG. He says, when we bring in the quarterback, people have to understand it's a 2 to 3 year developmental process unless we get extremely lucky and that player hits the ground running. And I think this is in response to what David is saying. Like, David is saying, yeah, 90% of people are going to be calling this quarterback a bust after a year. That 90% of those people don't even understand what the process is of developing a quarterback as a rookie. They don't. And Da'illa's spot on here. Lucas Aiken says, Joe doesn't know how to use voidable years in contracts to keep the team together. Every team does it besides us. And that is why Saquon Barkley was on the same cap hit percentage this year, taking up the same amount of percentage of cap that Devin Singletary is taking up with the New York Giants, because the Philadelphia Eagles are built on setting up void years and pushing some of this money into the future, even to the point where when Saquon Barkley's not on the roster, they'll still be paying a little bit portion of that contract. AG says that everyone hated Love when Rodgers was MVP type player, but they still moved from him, and look at how Love is balling right now. That's a fact. That's a fact. Aaron Rodgers had back-to-back MVP seasons. They paid him $200 million over a 4-year span, and then they went out there and they drafted Jordan Love. Some people looked at that as, not the correct process when Aaron Rodgers obviously needed weapons over there to try to get to a Super Bowl, but it's panned out for them now, and they really have not took a major step back at all in losing Aaron Rodgers and bringing in Julian Love after sitting the bench for, was it 3 seasons? I think it was 3 seasons. Shotgun is in the building. He says, authentic, my boy, as a black man, I just don't see them drafting a quarterback. And Sam Darnold is probably the realest possibility. I think if the Giants are there to draft the best quarterback in this draft, they better do it. That's all I'm going to say on that today. Dailla says, yeah, everyone hated Bobby Johnson. That's a fact. Lou Mateo says, remember when some of us thought we were a quarterback away? More like coach away, GM away, and 53 men away, LOL. That's a fact. We talked about this, 2 or 3 Giant overreactions ago, where I posted the poll on Twitter asking fans if they thought that the Giants were a quarterback away, and like 37% of the people said, yes, we're a quarterback away. And I'm just like, listen, we need a quarterback. That is a fact. But at the end of the day, a quarterback, a rookie especially, is not going to come in here and take the Giants from being a 2-9 team to being a 9-2 team. That's just not going to happen. Joe Shane Train says that Sam Darnold will be terrible in this team. I don't know. I mean, this team is terrible. That's a fact. I don't know how terrible Sam Darnold will be. I don't know how much of his time in San Francisco has, aided the process of how he's a better quarterback today, or if that has a lot to do with Kevin O'Connell and the surroundings with the Minnesota Vikings. I'm not too sure. And Joe Shane Train says, bro, look at that team in the Vikings. It's crazy because the Vikings were kind of committing to the rebuild after the loss to the, to the Giants in the playoffs and whatnot, and then allowing Kirk Cousins to walk in free agency and committing to a bridge quarterback. Those are moves that are for the future, And I'm sure they were set up to understand that if Sam Darnold came out there and struggled, that they would either have to throw J.J. McCarthy out there to the Wolves before the injury to his knee, or that if they did have to throw Sam Darnold out there, that meant that they could lose a lot of games. But they were prepared for that. And in return, Sam Darnold is playing some really good football. I can't take nothing away from him. Simeon says, I wanted to run Johnson out too. I couldn't believe that all the linemen drafted and signed by Shane sucked, but I was wrong. Yeah, it's crazy. Like, developing is not necessarily only on the offensive line coach either. A lot of it has to do with the regiment that is presented during practice as well. A lot of this goes on the head coach. A lot of this goes on everyone on that staff. And Bobby Johnson just seemed to be a scapegoat for it. But you're seeing it now with arguably less talent on the offensive line in Washington. Their offensive line looks much better than ours right now. And I chalk up about 30% of that, at least 30% of that, to having a quarterback like Jaden Daniels on the roster. 59 Ways to Groove is in the building, says, oh, yeah, glad I'm catching this show on the ride home. Much needed therapy session. Yeah, I'm right there with you. I needed the therapy myself. And 59 Ways to Groove says also, Giants have what they need in office if they decide to let Joe and Daboll go. Mikey K and Brandon Brown right there. It's possible. It's possible. I wouldn't be mad at the Brandon Brown, hiring or just elevating him in position. That wouldn't be too bad. Strider says, authentic, you know what people say about nice guys. Nice guys finish last. That's definitely a fact. They do say that. They do say that. 13th Giant says, I think it's safe to say Mara would never fire Daboll and Shane on a short week. But if we get embarrassed on Thanksgiving, you think there's a realistic opportunity they're gone? I absolutely do. I definitely do. Harold Jr. 616 says, I think the Giants should have never cut Jones because now Daboll and Shane are not about to survive the next 6 weeks. That's a good point. That kind of reminds me about how when the New York Giants fired Jason Garrett middle of the season, I thought they did it a little bit too early, and it didn't allow them to have enough time to have Freddie Kitchens at the offensive coordinator position, before being fired. And then Joe Judge went up there on the podium a couple of weeks later, kind of lost his cool, and then they all got fired. I think if they waited to fire Jason Garrett, they could have used him as the scapegoat. If they would have fired him like week 14, week 13, could have used him as a scapegoat, bought a little bit of time, finish out the last couple of games, and maybe nobody gets fired. But I do think it was for the best. That one guy, 123, says, I typically give quarterbacks 3 to 4 years. I personally didn't turn on Jones until halfway through the 2021 season after that stinker against the Buccaneers on my birthday. I am right there with you. With my recent stances on Daniel Jones, a lot of people have they think that I'm the guy that was like, oh, we shouldn't have drafted Daniel Jones. And I was all upset about drafting him on draft day in 2019 as a 6th overall selection, and I've always been a Daniel Jones hater, as they like to call it, but that's not the case. I convinced myself in 2019 that Daniel Jones was the right pick, at least as the quarterback. When I looked at the tape on Dwayne Haskins and I looked at the tape on Daniel Jones, I thought that at that time that Daniel Jones could be a better starter than Dwayne Haskins could be in the league, and I thought it was necessary to go out there and draft a quarterback. I allowed 2019 to go through, 2020 as well. 2021, I was extremely hype. I thought that when we brought in Kenny Galladay, that was going to be the last piece that could fix Daniel Jones a good bit, because there were things on tape that we saw that were pretty good from Daniel Jones. 2019, he showed that he could throw the ball down the field. The turnovers and the fumbles obviously were a thing. 19 fumbles, 11 lost, 6 of them scoop and scored. That's terrible. But I thought that Jason Garrett was the right guy to come in, help iron out some of those deficiencies in Daniel Jones' game. And it didn't happen. The Bucs game I think you're referring to is where he rolled to the right on that screenplay and just threw a interception to a lineman, here you go. And that was about the time for me. I was like, yeah. Middle of 2021, I was completely done on Daniel Jones. I'm like, this whole situation is cooked. And then we get to 2022 and he has that season that kind of convinced a lot of other people, but I didn't fall for that. I didn't fall for that. Let me see. Simeon Toko says Darnold, Winston, or Mariota. These are guys we were all talking about at the end of 2022. It's crazy to see their names still coming up. Michael says, what do you think of Shadur? Solid quarterback, great mechanics, knows how to play in rhythm, within script, in time. He's a football kid. Having his dad as Deion Sanders obviously helped him out. I think he knows the game inside and out. Very smart kid. I like the moxie, has the it factor, has the gamer ability. Sign me up. I'm all for Shadur Sanders. Sign me up. Corey Robinson says, we stay letting our dogs go. DRC, Landon, Snacks, traded OBJ, Saquon, etc. Bruh, shit is crazy how we operate for the past 10 years now. That's so true. That is so true. I'm going to highlight this because y'all know I don't shy away from nothing on this channel. Shotgunner says racism has caused this team, I don't know what you're saying there, but has cost this team Brian Flores, I'll say. Call drafting Jones in the first round over Haskins, RIP, and Jones over Barkley contract. So I see what you're saying, Shotgunner, here. deciding to give Daniel Jones a big contract, whether it was mutually exclusive with Saquon Barkley or not, it was a mistake. Allowing Saquon Barkley to walk after signing Daniel Jones was a mistake, in my opinion. Some people will argue different. I have homies that we talk ball every day. My homie Ricker, who has a lot of different stances on the Saquon thing. Sal's another one that says they should have just let Saquon and Daniel Jones walk. For me, it's if you were going to pay Daniel Jones, we literally, for 5 seasons leading up to that, all we talked about was look at Daniel Jones' numbers when Saquon Barkley is on the field and look at Daniel Jones' numbers when Saquon Barkley is off the field. It was very apparent that he needed Saquon Barkley. Even with the 2022 run, Saquon had arguably his second best season to date, and that was why the New York Giants got off to that hot 7-2 start. So I do agree with you. They needed to keep Saquon Barkley if they were going to keep Daniel Jones. The racism part, I'm unsure about, but it is a fact that the New York Giants have not drafted a black quarterback to be the face of the franchise in the entire existence of the franchise. I do think they drafted one black quarterback in like the 6th round. His name is failing me right now, like Andre something, maybe Andre Ward or something like that. I can't remember his name, but they did draft one guy. But they've never drafted somebody to really take the keys of this offense and be the face of the franchise. I don't think it matters the color of the player, but in this draft, it is a fact that the top prospects are black quarterbacks. If the Giants find a way to pass up on that and don't draft one of these guys, it will be an indictment on this franchise moving forward. And they will be the only team left in the NFL that has not drafted a black quarterback to be the face of their franchise. It's been puzzling. It really has. But they haven't had many opportunities outside of that Dwayne Haskins one to draft a black quarterback, and I'm glad you brought that up. Big Dog Status says, man, they need to get their head out of their ass. Some of the best quarterbacks today are black. It is what it is. Go get you one. Yeah, I mean, if they're the best candidate, go get them. That's how I look at it. And you look across the league, and I'd say like more than half of the quarterbacks are African-American now. And the Giants are just, late around that turn. That's just, it could be coincidentally. I don't know. I don't think that the Giants are a racist franchise because we were the first franchise to sign a black athletic director. I believe it is the title that Ronnie Barnes has. We were the first franchise to retire the number of a black player. We were the first franchise to have a black player in the Hall of Fame, I believe. So I don't think they're a racist franchise, but I do think that they have a certain kind of character and a mold that they look at when they are deeming somebody being a candidate for the guy who's going to run this offense and be the face of the franchise. Marjorie says, once Daniel Jones clears waivers, he can sign with a new team starting Monday at 4:01 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. He will be in high demand as a top-tier backup. And that's what I'm hearing. I heard the Ravens have some interest. The 49ers have some interest with the Brock Purdy injury. And there were a couple of other teams out there. The Dallas Cowboys were on that list as well. Pretty interesting. Michael Meenan says, even Troy Aikman's Cowboys won one game his rookie season. The difference is that team had no quit in them. Different era, too, man. That was a different era of football. It was a lot harder to gauge when the locker room was out on a coach or, not invested in and kind of given up back then because we didn't have social media. We didn't have all these press conferences and all this media to hang our hats on after the game. But you do make a good point. Ben Ayers says Daniel Jones to the Vikings. I don't know if he's saying that could happen. I don't see it. I don't see it happening. We'll see, though. Joe Shane Train said, get a bridge quarterback for 2 years and at the same time draft a quarterback at first or second pick. Yeah, with you on that as well. Let's take this one here. This one comes from 0031. He says, hypothetical. Can you think of a single non-MVP caliber quarterback who is playing right now that could come in and immediately help us next year? I cannot. The entire franchise has room to grow. So can you think of a single non-MVP caliber quarterback who is playing right now that could come in and immediately help us next year? Not necessarily. Not to get us to anything of significance. Nothing like get you to the playoffs or, nothing like that. I think Jameis Winston could come in and make this team look serviceable with the right pieces around him and if they could stay healthy. The Illa says, remember at the beginning of the year when many in this fan base said we were going to smash the Vikings? Oh, my God. I know. It's crazy you bring that up. A lot of my homies that I talk ball with in my Twitter spaces at the beginning of the year were saying that the Giants had a better roster than the Minnesota Vikings. I was just like, y'all really seeing that? I mean, they got TJ Hawkinson. I know he didn't play this year, along with Justin Jefferson, with Jordan Addison, Aaron Jones at the running back position. Both quarterbacks likely better than ours. That defense with Andrew Van Ginkel, Jonathan Grenard. Who's the OG safety over there? I can't remember the OG safety. I can't remember his name. Damn. But they got some players over there. Then they brought in Stephon Gilmore to play the other cornerback. Yeah, that's why they play the games, man. That's why they play the games. And the proof is in the results. I love that. Francis Moran says, the Giants drafted for need? ? I hear folks say better to draft best available. Take away final decision-making away from Joe Shane. Mara has delegated away too much power. Delegated, maybe? Yeah, I mean, I agree. You hire these guys, though, to come in and do the job. And that's been the thing with John Mara and the New York Giants is people are saying John Mara needs to get out the way. And Tommy Football's in the building. He says, laughing my ass off, I'm getting ignored. All right, cool. Put something in some cap letters, man. I'll keep an eye out. The chat is booming, Tommy. The chat is booming, bro. Let me scroll back and see if I can find something from Tommy real quick. If it ain't back in about, I'm gonna give you 25. I'm gonna give you 25 on this scroll, man. Yeah, I don't see. Oh, here we go, Tommy. All right, Tommy. All right, Tommy. You know I got you, bro. Come on, bro. Come on. You know you the gang. Tommy says Belichick as head coach, Rodgers as the quarterback. Draft a quarterback and let him sit a year. Easy. Make me GM. Giants fans overthink this shit. We aren't too good to have Rodgers here. We suck. I wouldn't be too opposed to it. That's what I'll say to that, Tommy. All right? I wouldn't be too upset with it. Depends on how much you're going to pay Aaron Rodgers, though. Can't get this guy a lot of money. I see OG Knockout is in the building. What's going on, OG? Let me see if we got any more. Shout out Sebastian in the building one time, too. Sebastian says the Giants are beyond trash right now. They need to fire everyone and just start over. Gettleman never fielded a team worse than this BS we watch on Sundays and, sadly, on primetime. No disagreement there. And Simeon also talked about we had a black general manager, too, in Jerry Reese. Yep. That's a big fact. Ben Dawson responds to Simeon, says, in the 100-year history, the Giants have never drafted a black franchise quarterback, only one in their history. They may not be racist, but they have a type for sure in quarterback and head coach. I don't disagree with that either. Bleed Blue says, look at everything he's saying. We get it, Sha. You love race bait. Whenever I talk about black quarterback stuff, I do see that on social media. People say, you're race baiting. But, like, when black people talk about black quarterbacks, what are we race baiting? It is a position, and I'm not saying this necessarily to you, Bleed Blue, or to Sha. I can't remember the statements that Sha said, but the race bait thing brought this up to me, and it kind of reminded me about this. That I don't understand why people act like, not you, Bleed Blue, again, like the quarterback position did not neglect black players to take upon that position for a century. And they think that just because we've turned the corner and there are more black quarterbacks in the league now, that somehow that history should be forgotten and people just shouldn't talk about it. And anytime they talk about it, that deems it being race baiting. Like, I always tell people that unapologetically, I want to see all black quarterbacks succeed simply because the way that black quarterbacks were handled for the first 100 years of NFL professional football. Like, and I don't think that that's egregious to say. Like, there are so many people that still till this day are not getting the proper opportunities, even as backup quarterbacks. I always think about Josh Johnson when I think about backup quarterbacks, right? Like, he's a guy that no team will just say, you can be our viable backup option for years to come. This guy's played for like 14 different teams, and it's easy to see that he is has been one of the decent backup quarterbacks, where then you just see guys like Mike Glennon hanging around this league for years, for a decade. You see guys like Chase Daniels being a backup his entire career, and every time he got on the field, he was no good. Dan Orlovsky. You know, there are guys still right now. Dude, Colt McCoy. Why has Colt McCoy been in the NFL for so long as a backup quarterback? You know, so for me, it's like, yeah, I just want to see the opportunities given to the right people. I'm sure there are other races that are being overlooked as well at the quarterback position. And that's just a thing. And until it's, you know, I don't think that 10 years history is enough for us to be not talking about this subject. And then every time it gets talked about, people deem it as race baiting. And again, Bleed Blue, I'm not directing this necessarily at you. I'm just saying, like, in general, like anytime I talk about black quarterbacks, like I listed a tweet the other day where I said, do you guys think that the Giants are going to be forced to draft a black quarterback in the 2025 draft? And the amount of people that came into that comment section saying, why are you race baiting? Like, what are we baiting? Black people don't say that term. I don't know black people that say, I don't even know if Bleed Blue is black or not, but black people don't use the term race bait because, like, we have been on the wrong end of history when it comes to not only quarterback, but just the way that African Americans have been treated in society in America. I mean, that's a no-brainer, you know? So I don't look at it as race baiting. And I want to reiterate again that that's not directed at Bleed Blue. That's just, I saw that, and it's just, yeah, it's something that should be talked about. Like, we've seen owners go out here and be racist as hell and still sign black players. We saw it with Donald Sterling with the LA Clippers. I mean, maybe 75% of that roster was black people, and this dude had horrible comments to say about black people. So I don't think that we can just put it past us simply because we're seeing guys like Lamar Jackson win the MVP. We're seeing guys like Patrick Mahomes win the Super Bowl. I think that it is a conversation that needs to be talked about. It doesn't need to be beat up like a dead horse or nothing like that, but it's something that should be talked about. Let me see. Gio says, sorry to say, but there's no free agents that want to come play for this team unless it's for a bag, which is why Shane has brought in such ass players. Yeah, that's true. And Shane is now, he's also a part of that as well. Deilla says, I wouldn't be surprised if Jones went to the Chiefs. Mahomes picks up ankle injuries here and there quite often. I don't think very highly of Jones, but he should be better than Chad Henne. Yeah, I could agree with that. Ben Dawson said, people love to say it's race baiting when you're only stating a fact on race that is proven over time. Yeah, that I do see that. I do see that. Yeah, like I just don't understand the term race bait. I don't understand that term. It's just so puzzling to me. Like, black people want to talk about issues that have held down black people when it comes to getting certain jobs, and it's race baiting. I don't understand it. I'm with you on that, Ben, for sure. And I'm just catching up with y'all. I wanted to get one from OG. Shout out to OG. OG said, authentic. We all saw good quarterbacks on bad teams. True, Daniel Jones was on a bad team, but he didn't display his talent with his team besides rushing yards. Jameis Winston displayed his talents more than Daniel Jones. I agree. Billy O'Neill says we need our old defensive coordinator. I'm not sure if you're talking about Wink or if you're talking about Steve Spagnuolo. I would take both of them for sure. Ben Dawson says, in regards to Bleed Blue, he says, I traveled the world and served my country. I've seen more than most. You can't sway my opinion because it makes you uncomfortable. Yeah, and I think that, you know, when people talk about race baiting, when you bring up topics around black people in America, it to me is just a cop-out to say, I don't want to talk about that. Then I think people should just say, I don't want to talk about that. And I think people would respect that. Like, if I post a conversation about race and somebody says, listen, man, I would rather prefer not to, indulge in this conversation. And all I could do is respect that. But I don't think that it's race baiting. To me, the term, and I probably got to look up the term race baiting. Like I said, all the black people I know don't say that term. I never been around any black person in my entire life, and I've been around a bunch of black people. Never been around a black person that said, you're race baiting. Because, like, it's America. We talk about race in the black culture a lot. But maybe I need to look up what race baiting actually is, because what I think it is that people are saying, like, oh, you're now just trying to, like, ruffle up some feathers to talk about race. And you're baiting in people into these conversations that don't need to be had. When I think it's important to talk about those conversations. Yeah, Strider, it's Emlyn Tunnel was the player, first Hall of Fame player. And his jersey's not even retired by the New York Giants. I made like a bit of a post that was a bit of a petition to get his number retired. And then a couple of months later, they unretired, Flaherty's jersey to give it to Malik Neighbors. I was like, man, we need to retire Emlyn Tunnel's jersey. Shotgunner says Malik Willis won 3 games, and I bet he don't even get a chance to start. Yeah, Malik Willis would be that guy that I would consider bringing in as like that help the bridge kind of quarterback situation and see what he has as a starter. You know, when the Tennessee Titans were considering cutting him before trading him to the Green Bay Packers, we were here on a Monday on the Giant Overreaction, and I was really, really saying the New York Giants should catch him off waivers when he was cut by the Titans, but they ended up trading him that day. I like Willis, though. I'm a big fan. Some people like to try to throw in that I was high on Malik Willis as a prospect coming out as shade, but I'm like, yo, the dude's played really well with Green Bay. Lucas says, look at the majority of owners. You're missing the point. That's what he's saying there. You're missing the point. 70 to 80-year-old billionaire white guys gonna invest a lot of money in a quarterback. I think it's more mannerism than color of skin. Yeah, and that's kind of what Ben Dawson was saying there. It's like they have a certain kind of character that they want in front of the media, you know, and a guy like Lamar Jackson doesn't really fit that mold, but times are changing now. You know, you look at these young guys and more, they're coming into the league with a bit of a rough around the edges type of personality, not necessarily like a politically correct type of approach from these guys, and it's still working. I'm right there with you. Billy O'Neill says that Belichick, white people always talk about race baiting when it's the truth. They named every position the Giants had for black people except the position we talk about. Interesting point there. Stanley Frederick says, hey, Authentic, what's your thoughts on John Gruden, the next coach of the New York Giants? So it's funny, man. When the John Gruden statements had came out, I felt very aggressive about my stance on him at the time that, like, yo, you cannot be saying that kind of shit, right? I do think that people deserve second chances, though. If you follow this channel, you know that I'm a guy who's a big supporter, major supporter of guys like Michael Vick and others who have had, you know, major platforms and major opportunity and made mistakes and ruined those opportunities. But I always rooted for them to get that second chance. And I do think that John Gruden deserves a second chance. He's a great football mind. I love what he's doing with his YouTube channel right now and sharing his knowledge on the game. You look at Derek Carr and the success that Derek Carr and Darren Waller had when they were with the Raiders, and the majority of it came with John Gruden as the head coach. So, yeah, I would be all right with it. Wouldn't be my number one candidate or nothing like that, but I would be all right. I would be okay with it. Simeon Toko says the real problem, in my opinion, is the Giants is not recognizing that the game has changed and the type of quarterback that is needed for today's game. Yeah, that's facts. Cutter Bang is in the building, says, hey, what's up, Authentic? Daboll will most likely come back, but Shane Bowen definitely should get fired by them. What would you think about Robert Saleh being our new defensive coordinator? Okay, so first on the first part, I don't think that Shane Bowen would get fired before Brian Daboll. I would think that they're just going to clean house and fire the whole staff, to be honest. Shane Bowen, I think, has done a decent job. Robert Saleh is the defensive coordinator. I would be all for that. Like, I thought they jumped the gun on firing him with the Jets, to be honest. Isaiah Rogers says, I believe Giants fans want the Giants to draft Manning because they don't want a black quarterback. I don't think that we can say that for the whole entire fan base or even the majority of the fan base. I think that, like, I have faith in humanity that most people in our fan base are not shitty people that are racist piece of shits that would think, hey, we can't draft a black quarterback. But there are people like that in our fan base. Ain't no doubt about it. I've dealt with them on Twitter, people coming into my mentions and saying all kind of racist shit. And some people hiding behind, burner accounts doing that as well. So, I mean, I do think some, yeah, but I wouldn't say that the entire fan base or the majority of them, not at all. I think they're going to draft a black quarterback this year. I think the Giants are going to be in position to draft one of the top prospects, and the top prospects are Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. All right, let me check these super chats one time, and then we'll get off into these Giant overreactions. We'll try to get y'all up out of here in a half an hour, see how this goes. It's been an interesting day today because my fandom, I thought, couldn't be wavered anymore, and it's just the way that they lost on Sunday, man, it was just pathetic performance by the Giants. It's just unfortunate. Big Mike says, shout out to Big Mike, first of all, for the $4.99 super chat. He says, only the people who know the history of black people not giving the same opportunities will understand. And I do think that we, as black people, it's so clear as day to understand it. And, you got to understand we're living in America, which is still a country that is predominantly white, right? And African Americans make up somewhere around like 20% of the population. So I do think that it is, is very apparent from our perspective. Like, I used to have arguments with people about this when it comes to like police brutality and stuff like that and how police handle dealings with black people. And you just don't know the kind of character you're going to get on any given day when you're pulled over in your car. And when it comes to football, we've seen it. I mean, just watch the Black Quarterback series on Amazon Prime. Just watch that. Like, for the people that are ignorant and don't have the knowledge on the history of the black quarterback in the NFL, you have to watch that documentary, because some of these guys came in as wanting to be quarterbacks in the NFL, and they ended up having to be coaches. Guys like Tony Dungy, who was one of the better black quarterbacks coming out when he was entering the draft. And, he had to make his claim as a head coach. And guys like Warren Moon that had to go to the CFL before they even came over to the NFL to be able to get that opportunity. When I was a kid, there were not many people that played the quarterback position that looked like me in the NFL at the highest level of sports. I can think of like Randall Cunningham, and I can think of Doug Williams, and I can think of like Aaron Brooks and Michael Vick, those guys all who held a crutch to help, bring the attention that black people can play the quarterback position. And if you go back to even before my era, to the point where people were publicly saying that black people do not have the smarts or the mental capacity to be able to play this position, which now we're starting to see that there are a lot of people that have been passed up over at that position that were probably not only qualified, but overqualified to be able to play the position. So black people are definitely going to understand it more than others, but I do expect people that have been following the NFL, at least for somewhere as long as I have, should, no matter their race, be able to understand the struggles and the plight of the black quarterback. But that's a good point you bring up, Big Mike. And here we going to talk about some of the touchy subjects, and numbers might dwindle and less people might be in the building, but y'all know we're here on this small corner of the internet, not to appease to the masses, but to just be able to express our thoughts the way that we want to. Chris Byers, shout out to Chris Byers one time in the building with the $1.99 super chat. What do you think of Mike Vrabel being the next coach? I'm cool with it. I'm cool with it. I want to bring in somebody that's experienced, and I think Mike Vrabel is not only an experienced coach, but a successful one at that. And I think he knows what it takes. A former player as well. He knows what it takes to build up a functioning roster, as well as just getting these guys in the right direction. And I think that he's a guy that's also accountable as well. I love what he did with the Tennessee Titans. It's interesting that right now he's not a head coach in the league. I want to say he was helping out with personnel with, I can't remember, Pittsburgh Steelers maybe the Cleveland Browns. I forget what team it was. But I wouldn't be opposed to it. It'd be cool. I do want to do a little more research on some of these head coaching candidates when the season is over here. Mr. Mini Guy said, John Gruden? No, it's still too fresh. Yeah, a little bit. Here, this might be a bit of a hot take. Like, you'd be thinking if you want to say some shit publicly. I'll ask y'all what y'all think about this. Like, speaking the way that John Gruden did in what he thought was privacy, is saying comments around your homies or other colleagues around the league when you think it's in privacy that are racist, right? That were insensitive. But does that mean that if you're good at your job, you should be fired from your job? That's the part that, as the John Gruden stuff lingered, that I thought about over the years. Because when it first happened, I was like, fire his ass, right? But then as I thought about it and about giving people second chances, like, is saying racist comments enough to be fired from your job when your job is not predicated on being really any type of role model or a good citizen even at that? He's a good football coach at the end of the day. Do I think that John Gruden is racist because of his comments? I don't think so. Do I think that he is homophobic because of his comments? It's possible. I wouldn't think so, but it's very possible. I don't know how these people are thinking, and I don't know them. But you might be right. It might be a little bit too fresh. When did that happen? Like 2021 or something like that? 2022? It might be a little bit too fresh. I know one thing for sure. He's definitely a good football coach. Sebastian says, Shane is a sucker. Daboll is a bum, and Mara is senile. This team has too many problems, and it starts from the top down. That's a good point. That's a good point, brother. That's a good point. Okay, so we got 2 more super chats in the building. Big shout out to Platino Power 2 times, one time with the $4.99 super chat. He says, I love the diversity of this channel. This is why I always support. Last week we spoke trends, now this. I love it. That's what's up, man. You know, just try to come up here and be as honest as possible. And I think that's what draws people to this channel is the honesty in the channel. It's not to say that I'm always going to be right on anything or, you know, I know what is the perfect plan for this New York Giants team right now. I don't. But I will try to come up here and keep it as honest as possible. And I hope people respect that. And yeah, I try to respect all opinions here as long as it's not, you know, no crazy shit. People can disagree all they want up here, man. That's cool. And I'll even bring attention to that because I, as somebody who enjoys a good debate, I love a topic that splits the room. I hate talking on topics when it's everyone is on one side of it and everyone is thinking one way. When I see that, I try to go the opposite way and see why nobody thinking like this. And then if I deem, you know, okay, they're not thinking like this for certain reasons, then maybe I'll go to that side. But salute to Platino Power, man. You've been rocking out with us for a long time, man. Appreciate you supporting the channel. And Blazing Brazen coming in hot with the $5 super chat. He says, corner of the internet, who are you? Bahamadia? You outside in the middle of the block, Chief. Hey, I appreciate that, man. Yeah, you know, it's like, here's the thing. I do understand that, like, there are other content creators in this community that have bigger numbers than us, that have more supporters than us. And that's why I say this small corner of the internet, because we're not in this to try to build up likes and get as many subscribers as possible. It's more about like filling a void in this community. For one, when I first started this channel with the beard, I didn't see people up here creating content for the New York Giants that look like me, that represent the stance that I represent. So I thought that would be a good time for us to come out here and be able to put some New York Giants content out there. And it's also about documenting our takes and leaving a good track record of, you know, how we thought about this team throughout the years and whatnot. We're talking 6 seasons now that we've been documenting this New York Giants team. And it's cool to go back and look at some of these takes and see where we stood and whatnot. And yeah, when you say one thing a couple of years back and then a couple of years later it comes to fruition, it does feel kind of good to be like, maybe I'm not insane when I thought this way about the quarterback position on the New York Giants, or when I thought that it might not have been a good idea to allow guys like Saquon and McKinney to walk and things like that. It's good to come back and look at it. Cutter Bang says, y'all, Gruden is not coming here, laughing my ass off. 0% Mara would never. I don't agree with that, bro. 0%? Nah, can't go there. Can't go there. I don't even see this comment in context. I just see the comment, and that's a funny comment right there. That's a funny comment right there. I see people laughing at Sebastian's comment. I want to see if I missed that too. Let's see. I don't want to scroll back too far. Okay, Isaiah Rogers says, authentic, if Daboll continues to coach, do you think he has to give up play calling? Because I think he is a better CEO coach. Likewise, I know there is a small segment of Giants fans who are racist. Yeah, most definitely. You know that. That there's a small segment of any segment, right, that's going to be racist. We know that. And you got to blame their parents. Blame it on their mama. As far as Daboll, I think Daboll's better suited as an OC. Oh, man. Blazing Brazen says that Warren Moon was my idol back in the day and spin the tightest spiral I've ever seen. Yeah, that's definitely true, man. He was a dog. All right, let's see. I think Big Mike sent another super chat. Yeah, we got a couple more here. Shout out Big Mike one time in a building representing with the $4.99 super chat. He says, not only that, always came at the success black quarterback because they are not traditional pocket passing white quarterbacks. Yeah, that was a thing. Like the black quarterback was too athletic, and those guys need to be a running back, wide receiver, and all that. That's definitely a thing. Shout out Big Mike, man, with the donations today. Shout out to Chris Spires one time with the $4.99 super chat. He says, if we get a new general manager, would you want a first-time GM or a veteran? Give me a veteran all day, 100 times out of 100 right now. I just think the New York Giants need to get into the direction of football, sound football minds, people that have a proven track record of knowing the game. That's where I'm at with it. Francis Moran says, very nice, great show today. Covered many topics. Thank you. Salute. And we about to get to these overreactions here real quick. We'll fly through those, and then I'll get y'all up out of here. Tommy Football says, clue is in the name. Authentic. Jordan Love up there keeps it real. Salute to you, man. Salute to you, fam. Shout out Chris Peace in the building. Chris Peace says, I can't say Gruden will or won't come here, but the question is, would he want to? A, coach again, and B, would want to coach in New York. I think Gruden wants to coach again. I really do. And I've been hearing in NFL circles that there is a rumor going on around about that. Whether it would be here in New York, I think he would do it. I think he would do it. Welvin said, give me an Asian quarterback, high IQ guy. That's good. Me and my Asian homies, shout out to my homie PJ, man, who actually played a big part in helping start this podcast. We make jokes like this all the time too, man. So, my Asians are definitely high Q, man. High Q. If I got a mad situation, I'm hollering at my boy PJ, man. No disrespect to nobody. Don't take that out of context. Pete Cho says that Gruden will get us all feeling nicey. I like the nicey. I like the nicey. I don't know if that was a typo, but I like that. Ben Harris says that Gruden back to Vegas, 5 years left on the contract. Yeah. Chris P said PJ's the dude. Yeah, we all got to hang out. That's facts. All right. Joe Shane Train said, can I be funny and give Joe Judge a second try? Y'all wilding today, man. All right, let's get off into these giant overreactions. We got 3 for the day. I was damn near falling out my chair just now, man, just slouching in the chair for way too long. But we got 3 giant overreactions that we're going to go over today. A bit obvious because there's not really a lot of new news for the New York Giants right now, right? We're a bad team. Everybody's talking about the coaches need to be fired. Everybody's talking about the general manager needs to be fired. Everybody was talking about the quarterback needed to be benched. He got benched. He actually ended up getting cut. So now it's like we're in a position where we just kind of got to milk out these next 6 games and try to figure out where the New York Giants go from here. Now, I'm sure a lot of you saw the Philadelphia Eagles game last night, and I do want to remind you by showing you this John Mara clip here first, and then we'll get off into the first giant overreaction.
What's the latest? Just on the Saquon thing.
I just got a text that Chicago's driving the price up and Philly's out. I don't know if that's true or not. Which I don't know if I'll make a couple of calls. I don't even know if that's gonna happen, but
I have a tough time sleeping if Saquon goes to Philadelphia. I'll tell you that. As I've told you, just being out. I've been around enough players, so but he's the most popular player we have by far.
Yeah.
All right, y'all. So I said we got 3 giant overreactions. For those of y'all that are new here, when you see the statement on the screen like the one you are seeing here right now, if you think that the person who is posting this statement is indeed overreacting, put an O in the chat to represent that you don't agree with this statement and you think it's an overreaction. If the statement on the screen is something that you do agree with, then you can put a U in the chat to represent that you are taking the under. And if you kind of need a little bit more time on it, you can put a P in the chat to represent that you are going to be taking the push. The first one of the day here comes from Kev on stage, who is actually a comedian. He said, I'm no football expert, but it looks like the Giants should have kept Saquon. Y'all tell me what y'all thinking on this one. I'm going to give you a couple of thoughts on this one. Saquon Barkley yesterday had 302 yards of total offense, 2 touchdowns. The Giants' whole entire offense had 245 yards of offense and just 1 touchdown. Saquon averages right now, this is one of the most craziest stats I've ever seen, more yards per carry than the New York Giants average on yards per pass. He's got 1,392 rushing yards on the season. That's first in the NFL. 10 rushing touchdowns, which is 4th in the NFL. The Eagles are sitting at 9-2 right now, and Saquon Barkley has over 100 yards in 5 of his last 6 games. 5 games with multiple touchdowns this season. He is on an absolute tear right now. Now, yesterday, I did see that after the game, the Philadelphia Eagles game, the Sunday night game, Lawrence Tynes tweeted out, "Let me squash this corny debate happening on Twitter every Eagles game. Unless the Giants sign the Eagles' entire offensive line, 2 Pro Bowl wide receivers, and a Pro Bowl tight end, this is not the same thing. Saquon is not producing like this in New York with their current roster," which is to kind of say that we didn't need Saquon Barkley, but I do think that you have to blame the general manager here for the lack of talent on the New York Giants roster, not Saquon Barkley. The goal here, and I've continued to say this, is that the goal should be to stack up the best players, especially when they're going to cost you something like $15 million a year, which was not that much money. Now, I think one thing that Lawrence Tyne failed to mention here is that when Saquon Barkley had to play games without a lot of the talent that he is mentioning there, the Eagles' offensive line, which I don't think is that much better than the New York Giants. I do think that they have a great offensive line coach over there. I forget homie's name, but he's been a great offensive line coach, and the Eagles have had a great offensive line the whole time that he has been there. But when A.J. Brown was out for 3 weeks, and particularly when he was out against the Saints, Saquon Barkley rushed the ball 17 times for 176 yards without the best playmaker out there, without one of the Pro Bowl wide receivers on the outside. When left tackle Jordan Mailata went down and Mekhi Becton were both out against the Saints game, or against the Saints, in that game, Saquon Barkley absolutely went off, 17 carries for 176 yards. Now, when Devonta Smith was out last night against the Rams, Saquon Barkley rushed 26 times for 255 yards and 2 touchdowns. To me, it's very apparent and clear as day that Saquon Barkley is the best player on that offense. Forget the surrounding pieces. This is about getting the best players in the league on your team. And when you look at the yards before contact this season, when you compare Saquon Barkley to Tyrone Tracy, it really says that the New York Giants offensive line might be just as good, if not better, than the Philadelphia Eagles when healthy. Saquon Barkley is averaging 2.6 yards before contact. Tyrone Tracy is averaging 3.1 yards before contact. So I don't understand, one, why we're still bitching about the offensive line. Two, are we going to blame having better talent on the outside as the reason why Saquon Barkley is playing better? We saw Saquon Barkley go out here with the New York Giants and put up 1,000 yards in 3 of his seasons, 3 of his 6 seasons. 2 of those he was hurt or coming off an injury as well. I just don't understand it. And you look at these teams that are allowing these players to either walk in free agency or trading these players away from teams that actually need that productivity on the offensive side of the ball. Like, remember when the Titans traded away A.J. Brown and they really didn't need him, is what they were saying, because they had just drafted Treylon Burks? Remember when the Giants didn't need Saquon Barkley? And now we're looking at this. I saw people as recent as last week saying that we don't need Saquon Barkley. We have a better rushing attack than the Philadelphia Eagles do right now, and we're better off without him. It's simple as this. Stack good players and continue to do that. Align the timing, and things will be a lot more simpler. Instead, Joe Schoen is trying to find bargain bin, clearance rack type of ways to go out there and compete on a fashion runway. That's not going to work with the New York Giants. And now we're looking at a team that is sitting at 2-9. And some people might argue, oh, well, maybe we'll only have maybe 2-3 more wins with Saquon Barkley on the roster. I don't think that that's a good enough excuse to be able to say why Saquon Barkley should not be on this roster. And in hindsight, the Giants should have absolutely kept Saquon Barkley on this roster, especially after signing Daniel Jones to that contract. Let me see what the chat is talking about here, see what y'all are, kind of going back and forth about. And we'll push it. We'll keep it pushing to the next Giant overreaction. Now, these votes be coming in hot. All right, let's start. Okay, I got it about right here. Okay, Sean Clowney coming in with the first vote. He's taking the under on this one, along with Kansan Zero, Marjorie, Capital G. Ooh, let me try and enunciate this one. Quayum Gilliam also taking the under, along with Leon. BX Banger 0814 says it's an overreaction. More unders from Ridiculous Nicholas and my dog. Big shout out my dog Momo one time in the building. Welvin says he's taking the under on this one as well. He says Saquon should have been wanting to leave. We should have tried to keep him. And all in all, he was saying, I want to be a Giant for life. When in reality, he really should have been saying what you're saying here is, get me up out of here. Put me on a winning franchise. Mr. Mini Guy says he's taking a massive view on this one. I am Jarrell taking the under as well, along with Blazing Brazen, Ben Dawson, Gregory as well. Big shout out to Gregory. Michael Meenan. They're all taking the under. Adam Costas is taking the push. The Beard is taking the under, but only they should have kept him without ever signing Daniel Jones. I would double down and say that signing Daniel Jones is more of a reason to keep Saquon Barkley on the roster. Corduroy Corey says he's taking the under. It would have kept the team together, and you need to match talent with talent. Barkley and Neighbors. Oh man, just missing out on seeing Saquon Barkley with a talent like Malik Neighbors is enough reason to have known that we should have kept Saquon Barkley. Chris P says, I would take the under, but also wouldn't have paid DJ. Hell, I wouldn't have drafted DJ, but that's a different story. Sabrina's in the building. Big shout out to Sabrina. She's taking the under, but better for Saquon to have left. BX Banger says he's not doing that on this team. He's in a better spot. Fans need to get over it. Fans don't need to get over it. We're talking an all-pro player that Joe Schoen allowed to walk with another all-pro player. And he's a guy that, listen, when we had success in 2022, whether people want to admit it or not, that was on the shoulders of Saquon Barkley and putting up the 1,300 yards that he put up that year. So I don't think fans, until the New York, this is when fans will get over it, BX. When the New York Giants start winning games, then I will say, okay, we need to get over it. But when you see this front office and this coaching staff continue to make mistake after mistake after mistake, to come up here and preach that fans need to get over it, I don't think that's fair until we start winning some games. When we start winning some games, you got my word on it, we'll get over it. Adam Costas is giving reasoning for the push. He says, because I think he needed to go, but how it went down is what the issue really is, or what the issue really is. 13 Giants says it's an overreaction. I like watching him run behind a competent line. Giants don't deserve him. Let the man eat. Yeah, it's great to see Saquon Barkley going out there and really, just having his best season to date. And this is the thing. Reasoning why people thought we should have let go of Saquon Barkley were some of the reasons why Joe Schoen let go of Barkley, which was he's 27 years old. He's going to hit, a wall, fall off a cliff, all these things. And for Saquon Barkley, the person and the player, it's great to see him just go out here and just completely just eat and have his best season to date and show that not only is he still productive, but Saquon Barkley might be getting better right now. Like, I never saw Saquon Barkley backwards hurdle a player when he was a New York Giant. We see him just yesterday break 2 runs dead down the middle of the defense and outrun the entire defense. So it's clear he's not losing a step. So to all the people that said that, he lost a step from his rookie season, yeah, you were completely wrong on that. Simeon Toko says the roster sucked. It did, but look at how Joe Schoen's approach was. Joe Schoen's approach was that we're getting this roster in the right direction, and we're going to compete. And if you wanted to compete, you needed Saquon Barkley on this roster. Ben Dawson says if Saquon stays healthy, he will break Eric Dickerson's record for the single season. I would love to see it. Oh my God, John Mara might not sleep for a whole week if that happens. Ben Ayers says it's an overreaction. Saquon covered up a lot of Giants' issues. He did. He definitely did. Francis taking the under. Shane failed to properly assess Saquon. Meanwhile, Giants O-line was always terrible. That's true. And I just imagine Saquon with this O-line and with Malik Neighbors out there probably would have looked a lot better. Not that it didn't look good when he was here. Kevin the PRF is taking the under. Dating back decades, you know the names. The Giants have had an identity of running the football. Shane gave it away with no return to the Philadelphia Eagles. Unofficially Retired Podcast says that running backs are finishing pieces offensively, for lack of a better term, went from the only star players on their former teams to players starring in their roles on a new one. I don't agree with necessarily the running back being the finishing pieces. You look at the way that Jordan Love, a quarterback in his second season, as soon as they saw, hey, we got a guy here and we can compete, they did go out there and bring in Josh Jacobs. A lot of teams are looking at running back differently now. Even drafting, if you look at Jahmyr Gibbs with the Detroit Lions and David Montgomery, those weren't final pieces, per se. So I think it can go either way. It can be a final piece. It also could not be. Simeon says it's an overreaction. Gregory says without Barkley is like going to war with one boot off. The Beard says authentic is cooking times for supper. Grab a plate. Just stating what it is, Beard. I just don't understand how these people can come out and say these kind of things about Saquon. Like, it's his fault the roster was bad. Like, that, it's not an excuse. It's really not. Sebastian says he's taking the push. He's thriving right now, and unless they decided to pay him and get rid of Jones seasons ago, it could have been better. Marjorie says it's not about just what he did on the field. It's his leadership off the field. He was the face of the New York Giants. He brought in new fans, especially the younger ones. Great point. Great point. Yeah, these are all really good points. Really good points. BX Banger 0814 says, all the hype behind us getting rid of Barkley. No one says the same about Henry or Jacob. Got to move on. I think people are saying the same thing about Derrick Henry now. I mean, the thing is that Derrick Henry was over the age where people thought he would fall off a cliff. But when here's what I'll say to this, BX. When you look at contracts in the NFL from a value standpoint, tell me two teams that are getting better value from the contract than the Philadelphia Eagles with Saquon Barkley and the Baltimore Ravens with Derrick Henry. You're going to be looking until we get back on the next giant overreaction next week. I promise that. Powell says he's taking the under on this one. For Jones to succeed, he needed Saquon. All great quarterbacks need a good running attack as much as a good passing attack. That's why Lamar, Josh Allen, and Mahomes are succeeding. Josh Allen's a guy that I feel like can get away without having the running back, but he's that much more of a great player when Cook is rushing well. Beard says Barkley, Henry, Jacobs are top 3 rushing yards, leaders in the NFL, and their teams are 24-9. Their former teams are 7-26. Bro, I saw this statistic in this tweet, and I'm so glad that I just saw this here with you posting it because I couldn't remember it. That's all the data you need right there. That's it. And Kareem Yee says, imagine having Tracy and Saquon. You know what's crazy, though, is that if they would have kept Saquon, I guarantee you that Joe Shane would not have drafted a running back in the 5th round again. He wouldn't have done that. But that would have been amazing. The Illa says, I'm all about the future of this football team, and Saquon was not a part of this team's future at his age. McKinney, on the other hand, should still be here. I mean, I don't know. It's like, it makes me think about what Frank Gore was saying, but he's talented. How many more years do you think that Saquon Barkley has of productive football? Right now, the way he's running, I would say he has at least 3 years left. Barring some kind of catastrophic injury, I would say he has at least 3 years left. John B says, Soldier Boy, you. MK5VW says, it really sucks because I really like Daboll and really wanted to see what he could do with a quarterback of his choosing, but he is losing the locker room. Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you. OG Knockout agrees with the statement on the screen. And yeah, this one is a little bit split. I like y'all reasoning. Cutter Bang says he thinks it's an overreaction. We would maybe be 4-5 win team. He declined the offer and took less from the Eagles, but can't blame him. Take less and be on a contender. I'll take that every day. He didn't take less from the Eagles. Where was that stated at? The guaranteed money from the Philadelphia Eagles was more than the New York Giants ever offered him. And there is no true contract. People want to lump the negotiations from 2022 in with the negotiations to begin 2024. They're not the same. If you remember when in 2022 when the New York Giants got to the bye, Saquon Barkley was the best running back in football at the time. You think he was going to take a slighted contract at that point? Hell no. Hell no. Sebastian says, I genuinely believe the ego of Shane derailed this team. I agree with you, bro. He wanted to prove to the league he could fix Daniel Jones, and it destroyed this team. That's a good point. Stanley says, do you think the reason why Joe Shane let Saquon Barkley walk and prioritize Daniel Jones is because they don't want to see a black man get paid top dollar? Because look at McCaffrey, he's injury prone. Nah, I don't think it has anything to do with not wanting to see a black man get paid top dollar. I'm not going that far. I just think that Joe Shane, if you look back at his track record and what he was doing when he was the assistant general manager in Buffalo, none of it was predicated on having a star running back. And I'd said this on this podcast and on Twitter years ago, that if you look at the way that Shady McCoy was handled, that means that Saquon Barkley will not be a Giant for that much longer. Guy Williams says, are we forgetting how screwed we are next year with the money Jones will count against the cap? That may play a big part in the next coach's decision. It won't be that bad. So you're going to save $19 million already by cutting Daniel Jones. You don't have to worry about the injury clause either because he's now no longer on the roster. So, you're looking at about a good $23 million dead cap hit. They'll be able to bounce back from that. It won't be too bad. I'm glad that they cut him and took the out when they could. I'll give Joe Shane his props on that, but the sketchy part is that Daniel Jones had to walk into John Mayer's office to get it done. Yeah, and there's a lot of comments. A lot of comments here. DeIlla says, I'd give at least 2 to 3 years. If the quarterback takes 2 to 3 seasons to develop, Saquon is falling off as the quarterback starts to ascend. So that's how I look at it. I'm happy for him, but it is what it is. Yeah, and you see that could have been a decent way to be able to transition into that next quarterback, that you have a solidified running game behind him. But, you know, being that we got Tyrone Tracy, I'm not too upset about it. Tommy Football says, they paid Brian Burns top dollar. Can we stop with the racism talk? Saquon not getting paid here has nothing to do with his race. Yeah, I don't think so. It has a lot to do with just Joe Shane not wanting to pay top running backs. I don't think it has anything to do with Saquon's race or anything like that. But yeah, it's interesting because Saquon was the face of the franchise, and I think that's the part that really hurt John Mara a lot. Derek Jones says Daniel Jones ain't there, and the Giants lost the same 30-7. Yeah, because they're all poor quarterbacks. Daniel Jones, Tommy DeVito, and Drew Lock are all poor quarterbacks, which is an indictment on Joe Shane, saying that he was comfortable with this quarterback room. Derek says that means that it wasn't all on DJ. I don't think anybody ever said that. Listen, I won't even say that. If anybody said that Daniel Jones is the sole reason why the New York Giants are not competing for a championship, they're a fucking idiot, bro. You know, I encourage you to seek out people that are more knowledgeable in the situation than people that were saying that Daniel Jones is all to blame, or the people that are saying that the New York Giants are a quarterback away. Those people are fucking idiots, man. That's just what it is. Shout out SOS Archive in the building with the $4.99 super chat.
Okay.
He says, I lost faith in Daboll. I was down for keeping him, but now I think Vrabel and a new general manager for a culture change might be needed. I'm with you. Vrabel is a guy that's definitely at the top of a lot of people's lists, and rightfully so. He's a guy that's proven he can win. You know, hasn't really got to the big game yet or nothing like that, but who knows? With the right personnel, the right general manager, it's possible that Vrabel could be the next coach in line. So I would welcome him, most definitely. The Illa says that Saquon deserves to be in a place having the success that he's having. He does, man. He went through all those years with the New York Giants. What was it, 6 seasons? You know, being the face of the franchise, hopefully waiting around for the team to get their shit together, and they never could. Tommy says, I think it hurt Mara because it was the Eagles, which is understandable. None of us wanted him there, anywhere but there. You know, I didn't care about that. Like, it don't bother me watching a player go to a division rival. It don't bother me one bit. And if they're a player that I liked and I thought that the New York Giants should have kept, like a Saquon Barkley, I'm going to wish them well and hope that they play well, as long as it's not against the New York Giants. And Saquon is shutting up a lot of people, man. He's playing some really good football. And Ridiculous Nicholas says, not in Philly, though. Fuck that. I don't care, man. It don't bother me one bit, bro. Like, they got to go play somewhere. And we play these teams 2 times a year. Beat them, you know? Beat them. That's how I look at it. Cutter Bank says, let's be honest, though. If Joe signed Saquon and he got put on IR, which has happened with us in the past, he would get burned all the same. So I don't know. Can't blame him. I don't think injuries is why they didn't sign Saquon Barkley, though. They just didn't want to pay that kind of dollar for a running back. That's just really what it is. Sebastian says the team overachieved with Devito last year, but we had Saquon in the backfield. We don't have that guy anymore. That's a good point. Not a lot of people were talking about that this morning, right? Like, yeah, Tommy DeVito went on that 3-game winning streak, but he did that with Saquon Barkley in the backfield. Big difference. Big Mike says, Saquon Barkley has carried the Eagles all season, but for some reason we want to believe the Giants general manager has made the right decision, even though the quarterback he paid is no longer on the team. Damn, bro. Dropping bars right there. Big Mike dropping bars. Pete, you know, listen, the brain is a really interesting computer chip, bro. Like, it will protect the body, right? It'll even protect the mind. It's crazy. Like, people are trying to convince themselves still that this was the right move. It's crazy. Simeon Toko says that 2-6 played 2 full seasons before he walked. He didn't limp out the door. Yeah, I mean, I guess you could say 2 full seasons. You know, if you really dive deep into the semantics of missing a few games here and there, because let's see, 2018 was the only year he played every game, and then 2022, the only other year he played every game. Missed a couple of games last season, was still out there. Missed a couple of games with the ankle sprain in 2020, 2020, I believe that was. Still rushed over 1,000 yards. Running back is not easy. Running back's tough. Mr. Mini Guy said that right there. You let go arguably the best running back in the league right now over a guy who isn't even on the team anymore before the season even ended. That's it. That's it. Big Mike, man. Big Mike dropping game right now. That's really what it is. Like, you literally had a decision to make on a running back and a quarterback. You picked the average quarterback over the guy who is shown to be an elite running back, and you built an offensive line around that, and now that quarterback's not even on the roster anymore. Yep, and Simeon says, especially the only weapon you have. Sebastian says, I hope 2-6 keeps embarrassing the front office because they deserve to be the laughing stock of the NFL. They need to take this L on the chin and stop being mad at L. Duncan. Yeah, I know. Like, that whole thing was crazy. Like, they're mad at her for making fun of Daniel Jones' speech where he sounded like he was retiring. You know why the Giants were mad? I guarantee you it's this. They knew that when Daniel Jones gave that speech that he was about to be released. They knew that. And the world didn't know that. They're just thinking it's a speech from a guy that had just got benched for Tommy DeVito. There was nothing wrong with what L. Duncan said. I don't know why people are being so sensitive about that. Unofficially Retired Podcast says that Joe kept saying it. He doesn't see running back as a position of value. He was never going to pay Saquon unless he was willing to take a bargain basement price. I'm happy for Barkley. Absolutely. Toxic Tom says, authentic, genuinely curious to know what you think Joe Shane's top 3 moves have been as your GM. I will say, bringing in Bobby Okereke in free agency is one of them. I'll give him drafting Andrew Phillips in the 3rd round. I'll give him that. Oof, what would be the 3rd one? The 3rd one, which is a basic-ass easy move, was taking care of the contracts for our cornerstone pieces in Andrew Thomas and Dexter Lawrence and not making them the top contracts in the league. You look at those contracts now, from a value standpoint at the position, they're good contracts. So those are the top 3 for me. Mr. Mini Guy said Malik Neighbors, Brian Burns, and Bobby O. I don't like the Brian Burns move. I ain't gonna lie. I don't like it. I don't like it one bit. It didn't match the timeline for the New York Giants. Nova Nebula says, are we sure injuries had nothing to deal with it, though? Because there were several reports saying he was offered around $12 to $14 million a year, and even Saquon in an interview said he was good with the money. Yeah, they were close in negotiations as far as the reports go, but the guaranteed money was what was the thing that was slowing Saquon from signing a contract. Maybe we're not sure. Yeah, I can't sit up here and say I'm a 100% sure that injuries didn't play their role with them. I don't know their thinking, so I appreciate that correction. This is a good one from BX Banger 0814 says, do we really think DJ signing was Joe's decision? It just always felt like a Mara decision, not going to let Dabes and Joe get their quarterback. It was weird, and I don't think we for surely know, to be honest, BX Banger. Like, there was the contract that came all the way down to the wire of the deadline. Literally minutes before the deadline, Albert Breer reported that Daniel Jones called John Mara. And then a couple of minutes later, the deal was done. So I don't know. But when it came time for the 2024 draft, John Mara did come out and say that, hey, I'm giving these guys the luxury. Publicly, he said it, to go out there and draft a quarterback if they think that that is what's right for this organization. So then we got to fault Joe Shane on this at least. This is one thing that we know we can fault Joe Shane on. Maybe not the contract for Daniel Jones, but absolutely for not drafting a quarterback at 6 in the 2024 draft. I know we can fault him for that. Stan's in the building. What's going on, Stan? Stan said, BX Banger, they chose their quarterback on Tuesday, March 7th, 2023, 3:56 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Yep, that's true, whether it was the entire organization or whatever it was. That's when they chose him. Derek Jones says, here's the problem with Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones took the Giants to the playoffs with the Giants offense playing a certain way. Daboll wanted to be explosive. Yeah, and teams got tape on that. You know, like you saw it at the beginning of 2023 when we were still trying to run some of that read option, the RPO and all that stuff. It wasn't working. Teams got tape on it. And I don't think that that's necessarily a problem. At the same time, I don't think Daniel Jones took the Giants to the playoffs. I don't know if that's the majority opinion or the minority opinion, but I thought that Saquon Barkley took the Giants to the playoffs. You remove Saquon Barkley from that season, the Giants don't make the playoffs, I don't think. And you have to be an explosive offense. You know, when you look at the statistics on explosive plays, if you have just one explosive play on a drive, you are 10 times more likely to score a touchdown on that drive. So it's important to be explosive. You can't just have this like methodical dink and dunk type of offense and expect to win a lot of games. Derek Jones doubled down on, did say that the new offense didn't suit DJ. Yeah, it didn't. And listen, if you have to be a running back as a quarterback in the NFL, then you aren't cut out to be a starting quarterback in the league. Hate to say it. Stan says Merrill wanted Barkley back and Joe Shane pushed back. He did. We saw the clip. And what else we got here? Yeah, BX Banger says that Barkley and that defense definitely took us to the playoffs. Yeah, I'm with you on that, bro. Simeon says $40 million on a dunker. Giants lost a lot at the end of the Eli years. They did. Corduroy Corey says agreed. Barkley was the reason we went to the playoffs. Honestly, the playoff win ruined our franchise even more. It did. And Stan doubling down saying, so despite Mara having influence like any owner would for their product, if it was Shane's call to let the face of the franchise walk, it was his call to pay Jones. And that's how I look at it too. Like, maybe some things changed and transpired differently over the years. That's possible too, but that's how I look at it, bro. Nova says, to me, 2022 was honestly a full team effort. Saquon was a huge piece, but so was Andrew Thomas, Dexter Lawrence, Julian Love, even Daniel Jones and Isaiah Hodgins and Darius Slayton. They were all crucial. Yeah, but I just think that offensively, if you look at the way that the Giants got out to that quick start to the 7 wins, offensively, it was Saquon Barkley. Why do you think Isaiah Hodgins is not on this team anymore? Saquon made things easier for everyone involved on that offense. He made things easier for Daniel Jones. He made things easier for these wide receivers because defenses were stacking the box, putting 8 in the box, and a lot of these guys were seeing one-on-one coverage. And that's why they were able to eat. No Saquon, no stack boxes. And last on this topic, Sebastian says, there's no way as a GM you would tolerate someone forcing you to make a decision. I wouldn't quit on the spot because what the fuck is Merritt doing? Or I would have quit. Yeah, I agree with you on that. Like, you are held accountable if you take a job where you are allowing somebody to tell you how to do your job. You are accountable for that. And BX says, we also saw Barkley's agent non-committal when Joe tried to match the Philly deal. Yeah, because why? Why after the fact? You heard Saquon on the phone. Saquon said, look, you guys know where I want to be. I told you guys where I want to be. We don't have to go through this again. When Joe Shane asked him if he was going to circle back, they valued this guy at $7 million on the market in 2024. It's terrible. It's terrible. All right, let's get off into this next giant overreaction. And this one is, we're going to bring up a little bit about Malik Neighbors, but I do want to show you guys some highlights from the presser that happened after the game where Malik Neighbors was showing a lot of his frustration.
How disappointed are you?
Very.
What are you most disappointed about?
I mean, shit's over, man. I'm tired of going out there and losing. Like, it's just that. I mean, I don't know, bro. Go out there first, second quarter, don't get the ball, start getting targets at the end. I mean, can't do nothing. Start getting the ball when it's 30-0. What you want me to do?
Why in the first half are they not looking at you?
I don't know. Talk to Davis about that.
Malik, did you expect the quarterback change to provide more of a spark than it did?
I mean, obviously, it ain't the quarterback. Same outcome when we had DJ at quarterback. I mean, take a look. It ain't the quarterback. I don't know what it is. Everybody know better than me.
Is it the play call? We'll take 3 more.
I don't know. Like I said, I don't know. I don't know what it is. But I know I'm tired of losing. Straight up. I know I'm playing my heart out. I'm getting everything I got.
Yo, he's definitely chomping the hell out of that gum. But definitely an interesting one here. And this one came from @Cool Shorts with 2 S's. He says, love to see this. A vocal rookie who is not content with playing with losers. Hashtag winners. Now, Malik Neighbors on the season has been having a pretty productive season, but a lot of it has come outside of the first half. He has just 26 receptions in the first half. Just 6 receptions in the first quarter all year long. 41 receptions in the second half. Has not scored a touchdown since week 3. Malik Neighbors has just 11 targets in the first quarter all year long. And Joe Schoen did draft Malik Neighbors as a weapon for Daniel Jones. 233 days later, Daniel Jones is a free agent looking for a new team here. That'll begin at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time today. On March 11th, 2024, Joe Schoen signed John Runyon to a 3-year deal. That was just 259 days ago, y'all. And 3 days later, he signed Jermaine Illuminor. All of these offensive line signings clearly for Daniel Jones. That was just 256 days ago. And before being drafted, Malik Neighbors told us exactly how he would feel if he was not involved in the game plan early on. He said it would upset him. And I thought that Brian Daboll was going to try to check him right there on the spot when he said that. But he was like, we understand, you're going to be frustrated, but we're going to need you to kind of tame that and dial it back a certain way. And Malik Neighbors is showing you his true colors. He's showing you exactly who he is. He is a guy that is frustrated, not only with the results from these games, but also you can tell that he's frustrated with the coaching staff, Brian Daboll in particular. He even said, you got to ask Brian Daboll about that. He even said that Daniel Jones was not the problem, pretty much said that the quarterback is not the issue here. You see that they're getting the same exact results from Daniel Jones and from Tommy DeVito when you wheel him out there as the starter. Now, culture. I think this is very important towards the culture. Culture means nothing. And I told y'all this a couple of streams back. Culture means nothing without victories. You will never see a team that has a good culture that is not winning games. That is exactly what it is, okay? And I feel sorry for Malik Neighbors. He was drafted into a really tough situation. Now, as far as this statement on the screen, love to see this. A vocal rookie who is not content with playing with losers. This reminds me a lot of Odell Beckham Jr., y'all. This was a guy that when he got in front of the media, his frustrations would come out. When he was being pressed out by Josina Anderson about what is going on, what is wrong here, she was even trying to allude that it might be the quarterback. And he was pretty much saying it's not necessarily the quarterback. Y'all know that Eli Manning's not going to go out there and run the ball. But he was also saying, look at the culture. I think that Odell Beckham was trying to point the finger to Dave Gettleman as the general manager and that the culture within the New York Giants locker room is not headed in the right direction. And now we're looking at this as 6 years later, man. 6 years later, we draft another wide receiver who has the type of potential at the position that Odell Beckham Jr. has, and he's kind of saying all the exact same things. Unofficially Retired Podcast, is spot on, man. Winning is the culture. Once you win games, nobody gives a damn if you got good guys on the roster, guys that you can go out there and send out there in front of the media and say all the right things. Nobody cares about that. Win games. That's exactly what it is. Now, let me see what the chat is talking about on this one here. Gregory said he's taking the under. I like it. He's showing some balls. Derek says, right, authentic. Excuse me. Deaton Shelton says, this is a U from him. That passive approach never works. He's a dog. We need more like him. That's a fact. Leon said he's a winner. Yeah, and winners don't like losing. We know that. The Illa says, how is that not the quarterback when DeVito put up a Daniel Jones-like stat line? And listen, I've thought about trying to dive into the thoughts of Malik Neighbors here when he said that about the quarterback. I just think that he didn't want to throw Tommy DeVito or Daniel Jones under the bus for the way that the Giants' offense has been operating. It's a fact that they did not get him involved in this game plan early on. And that's been the case throughout the season, that they're waiting until they're behind on the scoreboard to be able to try to get Malik Neighbors involved in these game plans. And that's just unfortunate for Malik Neighbors and unfortunate for the Giants and the fan base as well. Toxic Tom says it's never good when you have players who speak out like this. And even the body language, just looking at, the way he's chomping the gum, the way he's talking to the media as bruh, he's like, bruh, I don't know. He's frustrated, and you can clearly see that. Marjorie says, I liked Fat Daboll better. And when I see old pictures of Fat Daboll, it almost looks like a SNL skit. It's kind of crazy. Sebastian says he's taking an under. Giants have a losing culture. They need to get rid of the choir boys that try to save face in the media. This team is trash, and we are chronic losers. They need to change. They do. We got a bunch of unders. Kansan says, don't ask for a dog and cry when it barks. Giants fans wanted a wide receiver one. This is what wide receiver ones do. That's a good point. Welvin taking the under. Mr. Mini Guy taking the under. Derek Jones says, right, Authentic. The Giants need to draft different players. That's a fact. Simeon's taking the push. This should be said behind closed doors. Don't let the public in on team business. I can agree with that, but when team business is – Malik Neighbors went on to kind of say that he's been telling the coaches, like, what plays he likes, what gets him open, and in return, they're not using those plays early on in the game plan. So I think when you know, it's like the boy who cried wolf in a way to a certain extent. It's like Malik Neighbors is telling them week in and week out what he wants, and he's not getting it. Nova says, Mega U goes without saying. Bergs is taking the under as well. Got to get that stench of losing up out of here. Someone has to be the tone setter. I totally agree. We need to draft winners is what Derek Jones says. Jetpack Jeff taking the under. AFN 40 is taking the under as well. He says, don't worry, Leak. You'll get a new quarterback in the fall you can ball out with. Let me see. Derek Jones says winners. MK5VW says it sucks because Neighbors is definitely not going to be a long-term option here. I can see him wanting to be traded. That's interesting. You'll be right. You'll be early in on that one there. Stan says you can't want a dog, then get scared when it barks. And he properly credits my dog Mace one time. Shout out Mace one time. Let me see. BX Banger says give Neighbors Shador a word and his whole attitude will change. I agree with that as well. Big Mike says I feel bad for him in the Giants because nobody is going to want to come play for this team. That's true as well. Toxic Tom says, do I like he wants to win? Yes, but for an overall team, this isn't a good look, but looks like a lost locker room. I can agree with that to an extent. Officially Retired Podcast is taking the under. You can't get a dog and be mad that he barks when he's not fed. That's a good way to put it. Also, he literally said in the draft process, I hate losing more than I like winning. Yep, that's a fact right there. That's a fact. Ben Harris says Eagles had bad culture at 10-1 last year that led to their collapse. Saquon helped bridge Hurts and Nick's relationship. But is that to say that the Eagles had a bad culture at 10-1? Is that what you're saying there? Because of their collapse? I don't think so. Listen, the Philadelphia Eagles have addressed the offensive coordinator position 2 years in a row. They did not have hot concepts when Shane Steichen was over there, and then continued the same theme when Brian Johnson was the offensive coordinator over there, and then now you get Kellen Moore over there. I don't think the culture was bad. They got rid of what they deemed as bad culture with the offensive coordinator and the defensive coordinator and brought in different guys, and now they're playing A1 football. A lot of Giants fans thought that the Philadelphia Eagles fell off at the beginning of the year, too, and boy, were they wrong. Jack says Ward or Sanders. I don't care either way, Jax. For me, Cam Ward is quarterback one, though, but I don't care either way. Jetpack Jeff says, isn't tanking a loser mentality? That's a good question. Towards the players, I think that when you set up a situation like the Giants are setting up here where they are tanking, it doesn't look good to the players. But I think you have to be able to do this in a quiet way when you tank, and the Giants didn't do it that way. I would have benched Daniel Jones. I would have made him inactive, and I would have not cut him so that it didn't look like this for the players. And I would have started Drew Lock. And they've handled some of these things wrong. Tanking is absolutely a loser mentality, but it is for a short-term L for a long-term victory. That's how I look at that. Deaton says Leak is used to a quarterback like Jaden Daniels. Jones nor Tommy DeVito is close to that. That's true as well. Pat Barrios says Dex is a big puppy video gamer, not a dog. Jalen Carter is a dog. I'm not going to disagree with you on that one. The Illa says, I don't know, man. I find it hard to believe that the QB needs the head coach to verbally express to him that it may be a good idea to get Malik the ball. That's on the quarterback not seeing the field, just like with DJ. Yeah, and, there are plays that get schemed up to be like a certain type of beater for a player. And I think that's what Malik Neighbors is more talking about. Like, listen, scheme me open and dial up the concepts that are the ones where I am the number one target on that play. And it just seems like the Giants in the first quarter especially, overly committed to the run. Tommy DeVito had 2 passing attempts to end the first quarter. Should just go out there and let him sling it. Pat Barrios says, AT is quiet as a church mouse. I need my left tackle like Trent Williams, punch you in the face type. Definitely. All bringing up some good points. MK5 says, I don't know, Cam Ward scares me only because he will never have the time to throw that he has had in Miami in the NFL. Well, we need Joe Shane to be able to build that offensive line up to be able to make it at least a salvageable situation where he can have enough time. Love Cam Ward's pocket ability. That's one place where I like him more than I like Shedeur Sanders. And yeah, y'all, we're here, and Daniel Jones has officially cleared waivers. Y'all, a team can pick him up right now. And, you know, if some breaking news does happen while we're live on this show, make sure to put like those alert sirens in the chat so I know and that I can, break the news here on the channel. We'll see how it goes, though. Anthony says, any chance we win another game? I wonder if Raiders get in front of us in draft position or not. There's a chance, obviously, but I don't think they will. You got a couple of games here like this game on Thursday, like the game against the Saints, like the game against the Colts, but outside of that, New York Giants are likely going to lose the rest of their games. I don't see them winning no more than 3 to 4 games maximum. Powell's taking the under. He says, love the passion. There are some stuff he should not say in the media, but overall, love the honesty. Yeah, I'm right there with you on that. And Sebastian says, we have a bunch of puppies in New York. No dogs, no savages. I hope they let Leak be himself, because if they try assassinating his character, yeah, that could lead to some issues for sure. Derek Jones says the Giants commit a lot of penalties, but they are never roughing the passer or unsportsmanlike conduct or roughing someone or spearing. It's always illegal, or it's always a legal shift. Yeah, it's never a dog type of penalty. I feel you, because sometimes that dog get off that leash might bite somebody. That's a fact. Yo, that's crazy. Listen, I've been telling people that wouldn't surprise me if Daniel Jones just doesn't play football anymore, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Let me check this text real quick. Make sure it's not some breaking news. Okay, it's not Daniel Jones signing to a team. Joe Wise says, why do you think Locke was bypassed? If Devito was better, wouldn't he have been quarterback 2 all year? I don't get it. It's the same question that I had asked Carl Banks on Twitter, and Carl Banks was pretty much said he doesn't know why. I think that it's because they're committed to the tank, and they just want to see what they got in Tommy DeVito, so that next year they can part ways with all these quarterbacks on the roster and just have a clean slate. Y'all got jokes. All right, one more overreaction, then I'll get y'all up out of here, man, and I'll be on monitor watch for, if Daniel Jones signs anywhere or if any coaches are potentially fired before Thursday. But let's get off into this last overreaction. I figured I would start this one with a funny clip from Rex Ryan on the Get Up this morning.
What did you think of the Giants' performance yesterday? You had a great answer.
Man, I thought the Giants played well. I mean, Saquon Barkley goes for 302 scrimmage yards, 255 rushing. Xavier McKinney, your guy, leads the league, got a 7th interception. Oh, by the way, all right.
Leonard Williams.
Leonard Williams, 2.5 sacks for Seattle. So the Giants played great. But the little Giants stink.
All right, y'all. So this one here came from Twitter. It says, worst Giants offense in 25 years, and you want our coach, who is an offensive guy, back? No, thank you. Fire everyone. And this is a statement that I really can't necessarily disagree with at this point in time. The New York Giants are dead last in the NFL, averaging 14.8 points per game. They're averaging 303 total yards of offense per game, which is 24th in the NFL. 0.23 points per play, which is dead last in the NFL. 4.7 yards per play, which is 28th in the NFL. They have the worst red zone offense in the entire NFL. 1.5 touchdowns per game, which is dead last in the NFL as well. 5.9 yards per pass, which is 30th in the NFL. Their passing yards per game is ranked 28th in the NFL, which is 187.9 yards per game. 1.4 giveaways per game, which is 22nd in the NFL. The Giants cannot stretch the field right now. They got guys that they traded up the draft in the 3rd round, like Jalen Hyatt, pretty much sitting on the sidelines. He's been basically a non-factor, and Malik Neighbors is only being involved in the second half. I don't think that this is an overreaction at all. This is a results-based business, and Brian Daboll has not brought in the results. And I don't like to call for people to be fired, but I'm not going to be surprised if after this Dallas Cowboys game, especially if it's another loss and the New York Giants fall to 2-10, if Brian Daboll is indeed fired along with Joe Shane. And you see the statement there says, fire everyone. And at this point, I think that we'd be the last people, on the planet right now that think that the New York Giants shouldn't fire these coaches. Let me see what y'all are talking about in the chat, and then we'll get y'all up out of here. Listen, 2 hours, 54 minutes, the 3-hour mark. We gotta close this out. As much as I enjoy talking ball with y'all, I do want this to be a little bit palatable for the people that are going to be re-watching this on the replay later on. But let's see what's going on here. Let's see. Where do the votes start? Where do the votes start here? Okay, we're talking about right around here. D Nice says Rex Ryan is a Daniel Jones apologist. No respect. Marjorie Simmons says massive view. Simeon says he's taking the under as well. Deedon says amen, brother. Taking that U. G-Men says maybe they promoted Devito because they wanted to do the right thing for once. Devito should have been quarterback 2 after winning those games last year. But that's correcting an error with another error. I don't like that. Because if Devito should have been the quarterback 2, then you should not have signed Drew Lock for $5 million. So to correct a mistake, you make another. I don't like that. I really don't like that. Shout out Jameson. I see you in the building. Sebastian says he's taking the under. I agree. We really might go winless at home this year. Absolute disgrace to the fans. It's like spitting in their faces. Kansan Zero is taking the under. He says we need a reset. Ben Aris says I'm waiting for a Wes Steinberg bomb. Shout out Wes Steinberg one time, man. That's my dog. Simeon Toko says, thank you for coming, Mr. Daboll. You may now leave the building. That means he wants him fired. Jameson's talking about an awesome win for the Dallas Cowboys. Unofficially Retired Podcast says, I hate hearing Rex Ryan talk about teams with coach openings. He's trying to get back in the NFL, obviously, not saying he's wrong with everything. He's saying, or he says, I'm just not a big fan, laughing my ass off. I can respect that. Michael Knight says, I agree 1,000%. 59 Ways to Groove says, no choir, All-American boys. If your parents ain't play spades, we don't want it. I like that. D Nice says, what do we expect on offense with the worst quarterback room in the league? Not much. Ben Harris is taking the under. He agrees with the statement on the screen. Pat Barrios says, put him back in that blue F-150 and send him back to Buffalo. Gregory's taking the under, way under. Simeon says he's leaving a millionaire. No tears from me. BX Banger says, can't think of a single coach that could have consistent success with Daniel Jones, yet people blame the head coach. It's a good point to bring up, and we have to factor in, did Brian Daboll have any, doings with bringing Daniel Jones back? I think that's very important to understand. Ben Harris says Daboll had a hoodie over his head yesterday. It's over. Kermit the Frog vibes. Unofficially Retired Podcast says, after Sunday, sadly, this is a U. Mr. Mini Guy taking the push. Jameson Taylor agrees with the statement. Nick the Wick said, fire his ass. Shout out my dog, Nick the Wick, one time in the building. Keeping an eye on that clock. I want to get y'all out of here in 3 hours. Mobster Music is taking the under. Jetpack Jeff says, to be honest, nobody wants to work for Mara. Muhammad Ali, the champ, is here. Says he's taking the under. I've been defending Daves, but he got to go. That's where I've been. I've been defending Daves, but he's absolutely got to go. Big Mike said clean house. Berg says he's taking the under. Shane was supposed to bring the Buffalo style of team building and Daboll the offense. I've been a Daboll guy, but the record since the 7-1 start speaks for itself. Jetpack Jeff says it's an overreaction. Powell says as time goes on, it might be you. Daboll has lost the team, and if GM is gone, he's going to be gone too. Nova Nebula says he's taking the push. I still think Daboll can still coach and run a good offense if he's given better pieces, but if Mara cracks under the pressure and fires them, it wouldn't surprise me, but he might fuck it up again. That's true. Mobster Music taking the under. Clean up this damn house right now. Sound like Ma Dukes one time. Kareem Yee taking the under. Says there hasn't been any redeemable thing this regime has done to say I would want them back. That's a really good point. Momo says he's taking the under. Momo says fire everyone and hire a real president of football operations like Detroit did and build a structure of people who know how to draft, develop, and build a roster. Shout out to Momo dropping them bars one time. Tom Toxic says that, or Toxic Tom says Daboll looks like Bill Burr. Shout out Bill Burr one time. Mike Jones says one game didn't drastically change these stats. This is with DJ at quarterback. Anthony says, seems like the whole league is very jealous we are tanking and getting a quarterback. That's why we can't tank in peace. And everyone got something to say. They mad we won't be the laughingstock for too long. I'm with you on that. A couple of more U's. One from Thomas Perez saying clear it out. Big Mike says Joe Shane has made terrible decisions in the front office as a GM, and Daboll didn't want DJ. I don't think he fought to keep Saquon. Both must go. Sebastian says, I like Daboll before this team became a dumpster fire. Have no respect for coach that loses his locker room. Nick DeWick is saying, Ricky's dropping a bomb here. Shane is still up in the air. Daboll is a dead man walking. I tweeted this out the other day. Shout out to my plug who might or might not be in the chat right now that was saying that Brian Daboll is pretty much a dead man walking. It's not a question of if, but when. Jack says he's taking the under. Give me a former head coach that actually knows how to coach. And DeIlla says, I really don't think Mara wants to go through that entire process again. Don't be surprised if they are both here come 2025. I won't be. I'm right there with you on that. And Mike Jones says, we can blame everyone we want, but this is on John Mara. I think that's a good way to end the podcast right there, man. Shout out to all of y'all for being extremely active in the chat. Shout out to everybody who sent in the super chats as well. Let me see. I think I got one more. Yeah, I got two more here I'm going to go over. Maybe, yeah, we got three more, actually. Yeah, we got three more. Did I get that SOS archive? We did. Shout out to Formula Red one time in the building with the $4.99 super chat. Says, Shane and Daboll are married. You can't keep one and let the other go. I think Shane needs to go, and unfortunately, Daboll is collateral damage. That's a good point, man. They were a package deal. That's what everybody was saying when they first got here. And I think that's what it looks like. Maybe Brian Daboll wouldn't even have gotten a head coaching job if Joe Shane didn't get the general manager job. So I do agree they are a package deal here. And shout out to Formula Red for sending in that $4.99 super chat. SOS Archive sent in another one here. He says, we're never going to hear the end of all the former Giants balling out, but it never made a difference. We suck with and without them, maybe if we had a quarterback. It's a good point. That's definitely a good point, man. Shout out SOS Archive, man. Appreciate you supporting the channel. Can't disagree with what you're saying here. Can't disagree too much. And shout out Joe Winograd, man, who's still donating. Big shout out to him for that $5 super chat one time. Says, this might be an unpopular opinion, but I respect Malik. It isn't selfish. It's being honest. It says more about us that the rookie is the one who is saying it. Yeah, man, and I was going to show you all the Dexter Lawrence clip where they asked Dexter Lawrence, how do you feel about Malik Neighbors saying this team is soft and, you know, just everything that he had said in the press conference. And he said, yeah, he's got a right to say that. This team is soft. He doubled down on that. So it's kind of unfortunate we don't have those leaders in the locker room that could really have that conversation with a Malik Neighbors and be the fall guy and the representer in front of the media rather than it being our rookie wide receiver who's just 21 years old, man. I feel for Malik Neighbors because he's such a young dude, man. He's such a young dude, and they've put all this on his shoulders to be this guy to come in here and be a weapon from day one. It's unfortunate that things aren't going the right way for him in year one so far, but shout out to Joe Winograd, man. The massive super chat you sent earlier, bro, I totally appreciate that, and still donating, bro. Like, that means a lot, man. That definitely means a lot to us over here at Authentic in the Beard. D Nice said that Daniel Jones is a sniper. 5 coaches fired. Damn. Yeah. And Simeon says, dope, free flow of dialogue. Thanks for the show, Authentic. Thank you, man, for pulling up, Simeon. You've been rocking out with us for super long. I try to just come up here, be honest. Also come up here with a game plan so we not just, talking just a bunch of emotions and a bunch of bullshit. I like to have at least a, template of where I'm going and what we're going to talk about and try to hit on some topics that I know that y'all are going to rock with. So salute to y'all because I really can't do this without y'all, man. And I've been wanting to do more pre-recorded content this year, but there's something about getting in front of the camera and knowing that y'all are here in the building that really just aids the way that this content goes. So big salute to all of y'all, man. And I appreciate y'all rocking with me for 3 hours today. If you've been here from the beginning or throughout the onset of this whole entire conversation, throw them bicep emojis in the chat right now to represent for this channel. And if you're new here, let me see a 1. Let me see a 1 in the chat if you're new here and this is your first time here on the stream. And I do encourage y'all to hit the subscribe button and, join this family and rock out with us because this is one of the more honest places on the internet when it comes to New York Giants football. Big shout out to Mo Dog one time in the building, man, sending in that $2 super chat. He says 2-6 and 2-9 were the leaders. And, yeah, they were. And now we don't have no leaders on this team. And you look at the quarterback being, released. I don't know where the New York Giants turn to right now when they're looking for the leaders in this locker room. There aren't none. There really aren't none. And it's a lot of youth on this roster, and I feel sorry for a lot of these guys, man. I really do. Shout out to Modog for donating and supporting the channel, though. D-Nice said, authentic, great show, man. Shout out to D-Nice. Appreciate you being a part of it. Shout out to Big Mike for the super chats and being a part of the conversation as well. Big salute to all of y'all, man. I see y'all in the building, man. Moet's in the building. Welvin in the building. Mr. Mini Guy. Simeon. Kansas Zeros in the building. Sabrina representing in the building. Deedon in the building. Unofficially Retired Podcast in the building. D-Nice. Modog. Muhammad Ali. My dog, Dilla, was in the building. Jetpack Jeff, this ain't your first stream. You ain't fooling nobody. We seeing you around. D-Nice was in the building. But shout out to Jetpack Jeff. Look, got the emoji as well. Gregory was in the building. Miguel says positional value is a thing, but McKinney and Barkley were the leaders of the team, and it's obvious we have a void and Shep is missed. Absolutely. Deilla said, thanks for the time. As always, authentic. Salute to my dog, Deilla. Go subscribe to Deilla's channel, man. Check out his Joe Shane video. The first video he made when Joe Shane was hired. Check out that video. It's a must-see. I'm about to clip that up and post it on my channel, and make sure y'all go subscribe to my dog, Deilla, one time. Shout out Nova Nebula one time. Pat Barrios, Kareem Yee, Pal 11 representing for my Bleacher Report. Dogs over there. Sebastian representing one time. Marjorie representing. Darnell D was in the building one time. Salute to all of y'all, man. I appreciate y'all rocking out with me on this tough Monday afternoon. Just a tough day to be a New York Giants fan. But y'all represented throughout this stream. A bunch of y'all, over 200 people in the building on just YouTube at one point, and y'all still over here rocking out. I see Chris Peace in the building. I see Door Gunner in the building. Mike Harris says, I always enjoy the show, even as a Cowboys fan. Mad love for you, man. Big shout out to Mike Harris, man. We got big love for you. And you know we try to represent for your Cowboys as much as we can. Cannot wait to talk about that recap tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with the Beard. That's going to be a tough one. That's going to be, like I said earlier, man, to Door Gunner. Those are the games where you're just like, I just want to put those past me and get to the next week of football. Tough week for the Washington Commanders here. A big win for your Cowboys, Mike. And shout out Door Gunner. Shout out Chris Peace. Capital G. Salute to all of y'all, man. Appreciate y'all being here and rocking out with me today and allowing me to come up here and vent and talk about my New York Giants, man. Y'all know how we end every show over here on Authentic and the Beard, man. Y'all keep raising that bar. Keep living those dreams, because the universe flows in Technicolor and surround sound. And a life without dreams is a life in black and white, y'all. I don't know if I got this last one from Simeon, but I know we did talk about it. Big shout out to Simeon one time for that $5 super chat as well, man. I appreciate you, brother. You've been rocking out with us for a long time. But y'all know what it is, man. Rest in peace to the podcast GOAT, Combat Jack. And that is a complete wrap. We will be back here tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, breaking down the entire NFC East and talking about this game again with the Beard and getting his perspective on things and talking about that Washington Commanders loss to the Dallas Cowboys. And my God, the Philadelphia Eagles are on a tear right now, the way that they just took care of the Los Angeles Rams last night and are sitting at 9-2. So it's an interesting state in the NFC East right now, what we like to call the best division in football. Might not be representing that so much this season, but over the years, that's what it's been. I thank y'all again. I hope y'all enjoyed the show. For everybody on the replay, I hope y'all digging the vibes, man. But y'all know what it is. Enjoy the rest of your Monday afternoon. Try your best to not let this team ruin your week. And we'll be back on Tuesday, like I said, tomorrow. We'll be here on Thursday for the preview. We got a Thursday night football matchup as well with the Dallas Cowboys going up against the New York Giants. It should be very interesting. We'll see if we can hang in there for these last 6 weeks of New York Giants football. Again, I thank y'all for y'all time. And again, y'all enjoy the rest of y'all Monday afternoon. Y'all be good, man. Peace.